This is a Global News special presentation.
I'm just chomping at the bit to get going, and what I need, though, is a cooperative council.
The last 4 years under Kennedy Stewart have been marked by missed opportunities, division, and combativeness.
Vote with your heart, and don't be afraid to try someone new.
I'm sincerely hoping we're going to have a change.
There is no other council anywhere in Canada, or I would say North America, that has achieved what we have in the last 4 years.
This mayor is out of control. He is spending out of control, and that is irresponsible.
It was our responsibility. It's every individual's right to vote, and it's important.
We have a lot of opportunities ahead of us, but we really need somebody in the chair who has some experience.
We haven't been governing at City Hall. What we've been doing is politicking.
Good evening, and thank you very much for being with us for our special coverage of BC's municipal elections. Candidates have been hard at work in 162 municipalities across the province, trying to convince you they are the best people to represent you in your city halls and your school board offices.
And let's see if they managed to do just that. Now you have had your say. The polls are closed with the exception of one, and we'll tell you about that in a moment. The votes are being counted, and you can count on us to bring you all the results and analysis from around BC, wherever you're watching and listening from tonight. This is Decision 2022. We have reporters joining us from party headquarters to bring you the latest from the campaigns as this evening unfolds. In Vancouver, Sarah McDonald is at Kennedy Stewart's Forward Together headquarters. Amatagahi will be spending the evening with Ken Sims, ABC Vancouver.
In Surrey, Kamal Kuramali is with Doug McCallum's Safe Surrey Coalition. And Janet Brown is joining us tonight at Brenda Locke's Surrey Connect headquarters.
Kylie Stanton is in Victoria as BC's capital gets ready to elect a new mayor. Travis Prasad is in Langley, keeping a close eye on tight races in both the township and the city. And Grace Key is ready to report from across Metro Vancouver to follow the results as they come in.
And as always, our Legislative Bureau Chief, Keith Baldrey, is with us on election night, this time from the legislature in Victoria. Keith, great to have you with us. What will you be watching tonight?
Well, the obvious ones, of course, are what's going on in Surrey and Vancouver. Very dramatic mayoral races, but also council races. The two largest cities have some compelling drama ahead of them tonight. Also here in Victoria, brand new council with the exception of one councillor, just wiping the slate clean, so to speak, and a new mayor as well. And again, we're going to have probably at least a half dozen new mayors in Metro Vancouver. And what I'm going to be looking for is, been talking to some MLAs who detect a crankiness out there amongst the voters in a number of areas in BC. And we'll see if that translates into people wanting change and perhaps taking it out on the incumbents who usually fare better at the municipal level because the voter turnout is so low. I have to tell you, though, I live next to a polling station all day long. There's been just a continuous long lineup. I didn't see that in previous elections, so something tells me change could be afoot tonight.
Voters seem to be motivated, no doubt about it. Whether that's for one thing or the other, who knows? But thanks very much, Keith. We'll check in.
We actually do have our first results coming in from the eastern part of the province, Fernie, and I believe that the race for mayor may have already been decided. We are calling it Nick Milligan defeating the incumbent Ange Qualitza, 69% of the vote there to Ange Qualitza's 31%. So a pretty big victory in Fernie for Mr. Milligan.
Rare that is a result that we're getting already, but they are in a different time zone, so it came in a lot quicker. But is that going to be, who knows, is that going to be a sign of things to come for other incumbents who are facing very, very close, very tight battles?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think there's a lot of nervousness among some incumbents right now because, again, we're in a different stage of the pandemic. The 2020 provincial election, we were still sort of clinging to government in a way, and that's why the NDP had a big majority. Now we're less dependent on government, and that may be bad news for some sitting councillors or mayors. But who knows? We'll see. But I do think turnout is probably going to be higher than it was last time.
All right. Richard Zussman is with us tonight as well, bringing us results as they come in. One place we do know there will be a change in the mayor's position is Port Moody, Richard, where the incumbent is not running for re-election.
Yeah, and as Fernie goes the province, maybe, guys. Maybe that's a new thing we're going to have to be saying going on. We will see. I'm excited to show this off. There's a lot of technology going on here, and let's take a look, as you mentioned, at Port Moody. So all night long, you'll be seeing these maps, and they will turn colors as we get results, and then we will start seeing the results appear here. So Megan Lottie, Steve Milani, one of them is hoping to replace Rob Vagromov. He is not running again, and this is really a conversation around pro-development against slowing down development in Port Moody, and this is going to be one of those crucial races in terms of a new mayor around the table. The other really big thing we're talking about, and you mentioned as well, is incumbents who are having a tough time. So we know in Vancouver and Surrey, the incumbents are running. That's going to be really interesting. The other one we want to focus in on is Langley City, where incumbent Val Vandenbroek is up against Councillor Nathan Pahal. This has been a really tough race. There have been all sorts of accusations around signs being stolen and smashed. The two of them do not like each other one bit. It will be really interesting who comes out on top there. And right next door, again, this is another one where there'll be a new mayor because Jack Froese is not running again. So Rich Coleman, the longtime provincial politician, wants back in. Eric Woodward, Blair Whitmarsh, current councillors. Michelle Sparrow, a former councillor. She hopes to become the first female mayor in Langley Township's history. So that's going to be another one of those races where we'll see a new mayor in Metro Vancouver that we'll go back to again and again throughout the night.
And of course, Richard and Keith, you both know Rich Coleman very well. And if he succeeds in his run for the mayor's position in Langley Township tonight, how would that relationship, do you think, work with the NDP government who, you know, he sparred with for so many years?
Well, I think a lot of people don't know. Rich Coleman actually gets along with a number of people in the NDP cabinet. He's worked with Mike Farnworth for years. They've been, you know, dueling House leaders, for example. So again, I think the relationship there will be better than a lot of people may think. But it'll be interesting what the relationship Rich Coleman will also have with other mayors. They've got to work together in the Mayor's Council. When you take someone like Brad West, who's going to be acclaimed in Port Coquitlam, other veterans like Malcolm Brody in Richmond, for example, as everyone jockeys for positions on committees, regional districts and stuff, and heading the Mayor's Council, chairing these things. It'll be interesting to see how Coleman competes in that arena. I think he's going to get along, if he does get elected, I think he'll get along with the NDP government just fine.
See how it works out in Langley Township and across Metro Vancouver and the rest of BC as those numbers start to come in. Keith and Richard.
Check back with you guys a little bit later. We've got a crack panel of political experts helping us out tonight, too. And CKNW's Jazz Johal is along for the ride with that panel to help us break down some of the results as they come in. Jazz, always good to have you part of the broadcast. Introduce us to the guests.
Absolutely. I want to also welcome our 980 CKNW listeners as well. We are simulcasting this on the radio as well. We've had 6 great weeks of great conversation around transportation, crime, of housing affordability with our 3 panelists. Joining me now is Hal Salem. He is a Squamish Nation chairperson. He leads his community in significant development in Vancouver and throughout the region as well. Andrew Reimer, of course, a former Vancouver City Councillor, and Mary Polak, a former MLA for Langley, and of course a cabinet minister as well. Andrea, let me start with you first. You know, there's so many issues that we've talked about and debated in the last 6 weeks or so. Is there a particular moment or an issue that has stuck out for you during this election cycle?
Yeah, well, I think what stood out for me the most is that there just weren't issues for a long while in the election. I mean, voters were very interested in talking about housing, but there's so many parties, it's almost impossible to distinguish between the platforms. But I do think Ken Sim has been effective at making crime the issue that people are going to. The question tonight, I think, is whether he made it too effective. He got the police union's endorsement, a first-time thing in Vancouver. And I know anecdotally from talking to people, a lot of people were motivated to vote, to get out to the polls to vote for Stewart because they were concerned about that. So it'll be an interesting race down to the finish today to see which one of those viewpoints on crime prevails.
Hal Salem, for you, what moment or issue stuck out for you?
I think that this election has really focused a lot on the housing affordability and housing development, whether it's the pace of development and things should be slowed down or whether there should be more. But if you look at the Vancouver races or even some of the suburbs around Vancouver, very clear pro-development sort of zoning reform policies and platforms and promises made. We've seen some of the biggest promises in Vancouver's history by a number of the candidates, both mayor and council. But we're also going to see potential changes as a result to different political leaders who might want to approach development in a very different way than perhaps those leaders might. So I think housing and affordability are going to continue to be top issues for people, and we'll see how much that's impacted the races throughout the region.
Mary, for you, I'm very curious, south of the Fraser, is this a change election in cities like Langley City and Surrey, or do you think when you look at the entire region, it's more status quo?
I don't know if it's a matter of change versus not change. I do think that post-COVID, people have done a lot of reflecting on what the priorities are in their own lives. And I think they've done that in terms of their municipal choices as well. The issues I think we're going to see reflected tonight are part of that thinking that people have done. They're living in their homes for months on end. They're thinking a lot about affordability. They're thinking a lot about safety in their community. So we'll see how that translates at the voting booth. But I do think the post-pandemic world is different than the pre-pandemic world.
That is for sure. There'll be a lot of stories coming out in the next couple of hours. We'll be sure to provide as much analysis as we possibly can. Back to you, Sophie, Chris, and Keith.
All right. Thanks very much, Jazz. Yeah, we're obviously at the start of something new and interesting because there will be quite a flip in a lot of municipalities with new people coming into office with very little experience. But there are people who really haven't faced any competition at all, and we can talk about them right now.
Yeah, we've got a few races that are already called, and they have been for weeks because these mayors won by acclamation. So let's take a look at some of those mayors in Metro Vancouver. Of course, in Port Coquitlam, Brad West serving another term as mayor in Poco.
Let's check out what's going on in Burnaby, too. Mike Hurley, the punk rock mayor, the musician, wildly popular in Burnaby as well, will be returning to the mayor's chair.
And in Pitt Meadows, a rookie's coming in. Nicole McDonald was not an incumbent, just a brand new candidate, but no one wanted to go up against her. She's now the new mayor.
So just before we get to our guest, Keith, I have to ask you, is that unusual for a newcomer to win by acclamation?
Yeah, I can't recall, perhaps in some small towns, and Pitt Meadows isn't very large, but nevertheless, it's not a tiny town. But I do think you see situations like this in some of the more remote areas of the province. First time I've seen that in Metro Vancouver, though.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
It takes courage to step up no matter what, and she definitely gets credit for that as well. Okay, one mayor who deserves a lot of credit as well, and you saw him in that list, Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West, who enjoys pretty high approval ratings, obviously, in that city, and we're pleased to have him as our guest here tonight.
Congratulations, Mayor West, once again. And I know you're celebrating with your team tonight. Let me ask you, you didn't have to, go door knocking as much as, obviously, as other candidates throughout Metro Vancouver, but I'm sure you watched with interest what was going on in some of the other municipalities' campaigns. What stood out for you?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And first off, thank you to the people of Port Coquitlam. I appreciate your confidence and trust in me, and I'm looking forward to another really good 4 years in our city. It's been a very interesting campaign. I've had kind of a unique spot to watch it all unfold. It's been interesting to see that issues around public safety have really come into focus. As well as concerns around municipalities really making sure they're delivering on what local government's responsible for, and that's something I think we've done really well here in Port Coquitlam. And these are big questions that cities are grappling with all over the province. There's that tug to get into issues that are really outside the municipal realm, but you see that there's a need, and navigating that is a real challenge, and it's going to continue to be in the next 4 years, I'm sure.
Working together with some of the other municipalities too, Brad, do you feel like this dearth of experience, that a lot of inexperience and people who don't have some of that political experience will be any kind of a challenge in working together? What are your thoughts on that?
I think like anything, we're going to come together, and you know, there's the election, and a lot of stuff happens in the election. A lot of stuff gets said, and then, you know, there's after the election when we really get down to the business that we're supposed to do. And you know, when that happens, I think people do pull together. They come together. You know, you build relationships. You know, I've built relationships with mayors right across this region, and many of them have become friends. And so, you know, you build those personal relationships. This is a very unique role. There's not many people who know what it's like to be a mayor. And so, you know, there is a camaraderie that starts to build, and, you know, that's going to be the process. You know, no matter who's getting elected this evening, we're going to come together. You're going to start to build those relationships, and a lot of what comes after it is going to be based on that.
Hey, Mayor West, Keith Baldrey here. Congratulations again. Just want to ask you something I've been talking to MLAs about, not just in your region, but around the province. They do detect a sort of a shift in public mood from where we're at now in the pandemic, even crankiness, they say, towards levels of government and even politicians. Are you picking that up in your community, or do you think this is still more of a status quo situation?
Well, you know, I think that what people are sick of is hearing a lot of promises and a lot of talk. And, you know, there's been so many kind of grandiose promises, Keith, over the last bit. And, you know, I remember when, you know, we were in COVID, people talked about how, you know, this was going to be an opportunity for some massive reimagination of the way government and society functions. And so, you know, I think what people are sick of is a lot of talk, a lot of promises, but seemingly no action. And I mean, in my city, not to brag, but, you know, I really think that we've focused on the follow through. It's not just the announcement, it's not just the press conference, it's actually getting the things done so that people can see the difference. And so, you know, if there is crankiness, maybe it's somewhat deserved, because I think people are sick of all the talk and all the promises and not enough of the action.
All right, Mayor West, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll be able to touch base with you throughout the evening as we see those results come in. But as I said, I think you're celebrating as well with your team, so we'll let you get back to that for a little bit, and hopefully we'll chat with you throughout the evening as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, good to have him on board. Keith, yeah. I wanted to ask you something about something Andrea Reimer mentioned, and that is, has Ken Sim been too successful in making public safety an issue? He has made the promise that he'll hire 100 more police officers. He's made the promise that he'll hire 100 more nurses. Is he going to have the ability to do that and do it as a mayor of a city? Is he overextending himself because now he's made these promises?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to Brad West's point about making big promises and then not delivering, Ken Sim has been criticized. You just can't snap your fingers and create 100 police officers or 100 nurses or family doctors. We're having a staff shortage in all sorts of professions that are not easily filled, whether it's BC ferries, health workers, family doctors and such. There are not 100 police officers just waiting out there to come in and fill the void in Vancouver, and nurses are burned out. I mean, we've got a serious situation with shortages of nurses well before this municipal campaign even started. So he's made a significant promise. We're going to see whether he fulfills that. He's going to have 4 years to do it, I suppose, before he faces the electorate again, assuming he gets elected tonight. Of course, we're not at that point yet. Mm-hmm. But to Brad West's point, politicians have to be very careful right now for making promises that they can't fill.
Just talking about Brad West, Keith, and, you know, what lies ahead for him. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's going back for another term as mayor, but he stands to take an even bigger position as a power player within Metro Vancouver.
Oh, yeah, he could fill. Well, I think pretty soon he could fill Jonathan Cote's absence now as the chair of the Mayor's Council. I said a number of years ago, keep an eye on Brad West. His star is ascending. He is going to take over, I would think, whenever Mike Farnworth finally decides to call it a day. That's where Mike Farnworth represents. Brad West used to work for him as a political staffer. The two are very good friends. Brad West will take over from Mike Farnworth as an MLA if and when the chance comes to do that. It's not going to happen, I think, soon, but eventually he will do that, and I think Brad West is a guy to keep an eye on. He's going to be elevated in terms of his authority and responsibilities at the local level now as one of the senior mayors, and look for him to make a jump into more senior levels of politics in the years ahead. Like I say, a few years ago, Brad West is on his way up.
We should mention, just getting back to the race in Vancouver, I mentioned off the top that the polls are closed, except for one. in the city of Vancouver. I think it's at John Oliver, where there was a scheduled, who knows why, but a scheduled power outage earlier today. And so they're keeping that poll open until 9 o'clock tonight. So there will be more opportunity to vote there if you were waiting earlier today.
Exactly. And that does delay the release of the results from Vancouver until 9 o'clock, until that poll is closed. So those numbers might be a little late coming in as we watch that battle between, as we mentioned, Ken Sim and the incumbent mayor, Kennedy Stewart. And so let's check in at Kennedy Stewart's headquarters right now. That's where Sarah McDonald is, and his campaign obviously trying to hold off a strong challenger. Sarah.
That's right, Chris, Sophie, you can hear the music going. They're certainly hoping for a party here later tonight. Whether or not that will happen, we will wait and see. It's definitely feeling a bit like deja vu, though, tonight at Kennedy Stewart's party headquarters. Of course, 4 years ago, we saw Stewart go head-to-head with his main challenger, Ken Sim. Back in 2018, when Stewart was running as an independent, he narrowly edged out Sim by less than 1,000 votes, 957 ballots. He's looking to clinch a win tonight and a second term at City Hall. He's looking to do so this time around under the Forward Together party. He also wants to clinch a majority on City Council. Neither of those things will likely come easily for Stewart tonight. He's now had 4 years at City Hall, a member of City Council. He has a lot of criticism to show for his time in City Hall. He's faced blowback from his own police department, from his own constituents over things like rising street crime, rising homelessness, rising street disorder, rising overdose deaths, among other things. Now, Stewart, for his part, touts himself as a champion of safe supply, harm reduction, rental protections, housing affordability, and public transit, among other things. His critics, though, maintain he is ineffective. Stewart says he just needs some more time to get the job done. Will he get that time? We'll find out tonight. That's up to the voters. We'll wait and see.
And whether he gets the council to support him as well. Thanks very much, Sarah.
Sarah, of course, was up late following Kennedy Stewart's campaign back in 2018. So she's very familiar with that campaign for sure. Back when he was an independent and back when Ken Sim was running for the NPA, of course, this time he has a new party, ABC, A Better City. And that's where we find our Ahmad Agahi tonight at ABC headquarters. Ahmad?
Yeah, it's very loud in here as supporters, the volunteers and candidates trickle into South Hall in Vancouver, where the ABC Vancouver party is holding its election headquarters and viewing party for results tonight. We're told Ken Sim and his family are upstairs. They are eagerly awaiting the results here. It's been 4 years in the making for Ken Sim, who lost the last election, but created a new ABC Vancouver party with a clear objective of bringing change to City Hall and doing it at all levels of governance, whether it is the park board, school board, or City Council. And they certainly believe they have done enough to push their candidates across the line this time, whether it is the 70,000 people they've door knocked, the 220,000 phone calls they've made, or the campaign promises, the ambitious ones that they've made, including the promise of that 100 police officers and 100 public health nurses, which I'm told by people in this campaign is polling very well, a plus 60, which is inside baseball for it's doing really well and potentially contributing to the level of confidence that has been exuded by this party here tonight. Will that confidence turn into results? We will be eagerly watching from the headquarters here in South Vancouver.
All right, Ahmad, thanks for that. Of course, we talk about Ken Sim, we talk about Kennedy Stewart, but there were what were considered to be the 5 major candidates in Vancouver as well, including Colleen Hardwick from Team. Fred Harding ended up stepping up for the NPA when John Cooper decided he was not going to run, and Mark Marison for Progress Vancouver. There's been some chatter among MLAs in Vancouver that they believe that Colleen Hardwick will come, pretty close behind Kennedy Stewart. So depending on what we see tonight when those numbers are finally counted.
Yeah, the last poll we saw had Ken Sim and Kennedy Stewart neck and neck.
And Colleen Hardwick.
And Colleen Hardwick right there. And it's clear that there are a lot of people who feel like maybe Kennedy Stewart isn't the one, but if that vote gets split, as we've been talking about leading up to Election Day today, if that vote gets split, it does leave a path for Kennedy Stewart to regain his mayor's chair. All right, we do have some results coming in right now. We'll check in at the results desk with Richard Zussman to break it down for us. Richard?
Red means we have numbers, Chris, so that's what you're starting to see across here in parts of Metro Vancouver, but I want to focus in on Delta. You mentioned earlier Brad West wants to take a bigger role in Metro Vancouver politics. Well, George Harvey is another person who may want to step up here, potentially Mayor's Council, potentially the Metro Vancouver Board, and he's out to an early lead here. 83% of the votes so far, 240 votes. He's up 200 votes. Again, we're very early here, just 2 polls reporting out of 32, but this is a race that we're going to keep a close eye on. George Harvey won for the first time 4 years ago, and it's not just a night for those in Metro Vancouver. There are races going on across the province, so I want to show you a few of the other ones we're going to keep our eye on. Prince George is one of them, and we have some, no results yet, but it's going to be a very interesting race here. No incumbent. Lynn Hall is not running here. Terry McConaughey is one of the people to watch very closely, and so is Simon Yu. So Prince George is going to be a very interesting race to watch, and let's take a look at Kamloops as well. Again, Ken Christian not running again. There will be a new mayor in Kamloops. 3 sitting city councillors are running. Dieter Duty, Sadie Hunter, as well as Arjun Singh. So we know in Kamloops there will be a new mayor. And the other place, the provincial capital, we know there will be a new mayor in Victoria. Lisa Helps is not running again. Marianne Alto, Stephen Andrews, sitting councillors, they are hoping to replace Lisa Helps. We have heard a lot about this race. It's going to be very interesting. Again, we'll be going all night to have a look at what's going on in the provincial capital.
Richard, thanks very much for that. Yeah, those 2 major players in Victoria, and maybe more than any other city in the province, really newbies taking over, with the exception of Ben Isaac, and Kylie will get into that, I'm sure, a little bit later. She's at Marianne Alto's headquarters, but really a change of guard there in municipal politics, Keith and Richard. Keith, what are your thoughts on how that could play out?
Well, it's interesting. You start placing the provincial electoral map over the maps of Vancouver and Victoria and carve it into ridings. You'll see Vancouver and Victoria are very strong NDP strongholds. The NDP holds 8 of 10 seats in Vancouver and both Victoria ridings, and by large margins in Victoria. NDP, I like to call Victoria an NDP colony, and they have dominated, as Kylie reported off the top, the mayor's chair for a number of years, and significant numbers on council as well. So even though there's newbies coming in, we'll see if it's going to be the traditional, in Victoria, sort of liberal left councillors that we've been seeing for years. And back to Kennedy Stewart, you would think as a former NDP MP running in Vancouver and associated with the NDP federally, that should acquit him very well in a town that generally tends to elect, by and large, NDP candidates. So that should give him an advantage, and it should give Marianne Alto an advantage in Victoria, but we'll see how that plays out tonight.
One of the other really interesting things to watch with these first-time mayors is the sort of confidence they have. What do they do when they walk into the boardroom at Mayor's Council in Metro Vancouver? What do they do when they have that first meeting with a minister or a premier? And that's why some of these political veterans may get into the job a little bit easier than those who are newcomers. It's a challenge to walk into those meetings with confidence with other elected officials. So it's going to be curious to see how it all shakes up when you have a guy like Ken Sim, if he ends up winning, no political experience. What's it like when he's up against the premier for the first time, trying to lobby for money for his community? So watching those dynamics are going to be really fascinating.
Well, especially, Keith, when the man who will most likely become premier, David Eby, was very vocal in supporting Kennedy Stewart in this election campaign.
Eby's endorsement surprised me. For a guy, running for premier, you're sort of in a different level, different orbit than you are even as a cabinet minister or an MLA. So that was a bit surprising. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Vancouver NDP MLAs to step up and endorse Kennedy Stewart, which I take as a sign that perhaps Stewart's campaign needed a bit of a push up, that it wasn't all smooth sailing for him. He needed these endorsements from sitting cabinet ministers in Vancouver, former mayor and former party leader Mike Harcourt and such. Again, I'm not sure how much that matters at the end of the day in terms of working with Ken Sim, but if he proves victorious. But it might be a little awkward if Eby becomes premier, Ken Sim becomes mayor, and that endorsement stands in the way between the two of them.
Does that say something, Keith, about how, potentially there could be a shift to the right? I mean, as you pointed out, Victoria has for many years been Progressive has been NDP territory. Vancouver as well for more than a decade has had what's considered to be a progressive mayor. So is that indicative of perhaps a concern even at the provincial level of the political winds shifting?
Not sure the winds are shifting in Victoria. I mean, it's a pretty strong NDP/Green town. And also, it's interesting, sort of a side issue here in Vancouver. People forget there are 3 Green MLA or Green councillors there. That's the biggest percentage in terms of an arena that has Green representation. So in terms of a shift, I'm not sure it's a left-right shift. I just wonder if it's a shift against incumbents. Mm-hmm. And again, has the mood shifted? Mary Polak pointed out on Jazz's panel that we're in a different mood right now than we were before the pandemic or in the middle of the pandemic, and who knows how that's going to translate into voting patterns.
All right, more results coming in. Keith, thanks very much for that. We're going to check in with Richard Zussman. We've been talking about this battle in Surrey, and out of the gate, things are not looking good for Doug McCallum. But a reminder again, this is early days. Richard, what have you got?
All right, we get to press the red, and we get a surprise, Chris. See who it is. I haven't even looked yet. There it is. So Brenda Locke is out to the early lead, and you mentioned Doug McCallum, the incumbent, all the way back here in third place. We're early, just 4 to 68 polls reporting. So it's going to be interesting to watch these numbers as we go through the night. But this is a good start. Again, we don't know where in Surrey these votes are coming from. And in this community, that is crucial because we've had, campaigns out there working the votes in South Surrey and Cloverdale. And we have campaigns working the votes in the South Asian communities in Surrey. And this is going to be crucial. But early on here, Brenda Locke, 919 votes, up a little bit more than 20 votes over Gordie Hogue. And Doug McCallum all the way back here with just 383 votes. Ginny Sims in fourth. And if we flip the page, we see Sue Dollywall only at 110 votes, 4% of the votes. Those are the big 5 in Surrey. It's going to be fascinating to watch. New Westminster, another place where we're going to get a new mayor tonight. No numbers yet in the system, but it's going to be an interesting race as we have a few councillors here trying to replace Jonathan Cote. But obviously, one of the big stories of tonight will be Surrey. After those 2 polls, we have Brenda Locke up here over just a little over Gordie Hogue.
And I imagine Brenda Locke's team is pretty happy about those early results. It is early, but I think we have Janet Brown at Brenda Locke's Surrey Connect headquarters tonight. They would have to be happy, even though it's so early in the evening. Janet?
Hello, Sophie. It really is early in the evening. In fact, it's so early that Brenda Locke isn't even here at her campaign headquarters yet. We are at the Mirage Banquet Hall in downtown Cloverdale. While Brenda Locke is not here, a lot of supporters are. I would say roughly 100 or so people looking around the room. And Sophie, just a few minutes ago, organizers came and they packed up the tables and they packed up the chairs as if things were ending and it was over, but they apparently received word that there is a big crowd heading this way tonight. So is that an indication as to what will happen with Brenda Locke tonight? Time will tell this evening. Also a number of RCMP officers here in the crowd, senior RCMP officers from the Surrey RCMP, and of course Brenda Locke, if elected mayor tonight, is vowing to stop the policing transition, so it will be interesting to see if that resonates with voters across the city of Surrey. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Janet. Janet Brown at Brenda Locke's headquarters.
All right, well, Doug McCallum's headquarters can't be pleased to see around 14% of the vote in that early voting, with only a few of the polls reporting there. Kamal Karamali is at Doug McCallum's Safe Surrey Coalition headquarters right now, and did they see those results, Kamal, and was there a reaction in the room to it?
Yeah, they are watching quite closely here, but you wouldn't be able to tell that Doug McCallum isn't off to a great start in the early portions of this polling. The polls might be closed, but the bar here is open, just to give you a sense of the positive vibe here, Chris and Sophie. A lot of people have packed in here. We're seeing about maybe 200 to 300 people here. And once again, a very positive mood here, despite the early polls showing McCallum not in the lead and sitting and taking a back seat to Brenda Locke here. If you pan over to the stage here, this is where Doug McCallum is hoping to have a victory speech, being re-elected later tonight. And you can see a picture of the Safe Surrey Coalition team there, 8 candidates vying for all 8 council spots as well. So a full contingent here vying for mayor and council here in Surrey. Once again, Doug McCallum's platform is that he is hoping to extend the SkyTrain down to Newton. He also has proposed a 16,000-seat stadium for Surrey, and he's hoping to increase keep tax revenues at 2.9%. So that's the platform he's currently sitting on. Obviously, his time as mayor has been marred in controversy, facing a charge of mischief. That trial is set to begin 2 weeks from now, but you wouldn't be able to tell that that is front and center here. Once again, a very positive vibe, even though McCallum is off to a slow start in the early polling. Back over to you.
Polls are closed. Bar is open at the McCallum headquarters. Thanks very much for that, Kamal. And yeah, that was one of his promises, to freeze property taxes at 2.9%.
So more polls reporting, 45% of the polls reporting now. Brenda Locke still in the lead with 30% of the vote. Gordie Hogan second with 25%. And Doug McCallum in just a couple of percentage points behind with 23%. Jazz Johal, CKNW's Jazz Johal with us with our political panel tonight. Jazz, I know you were watching that Surrey race, just following you on Twitter. You seem to watch it with a lot of amusement, especially when Doug McCallum proposed that, or promised, I should say, that 60,000 seat stadium and many other promises. Let's find out what you and the panel think about what's been going on so far.
Yeah, I think our CKNW listeners came up with the Doug Mahal, so we're going to go with that at this point. But let's touch a little bit about promises, whether it's stadiums, whether it's 100 police officers and 100 mental health nurses in Vancouver. Andrea Reimer, let me go to you, former Vancouver councillor. You've been in those discussions when you have to make those tough decisions, including promises you've made in the past. How feasible is it for Mr. Sim in Vancouver in this case, where he's promised 100 new police officers, 100 new mental health nurses, to be able to deliver that within his 4-year mandate?
Well, I mean, those are two specific promises amongst many that I think are going to get pretty real pretty quick. The cities across the province, local governments, have to have budgets passed by December 31st. So you've got to figure out how you're going to cost all of this out and get it done. There's some dark realities with inflation that all local governments are facing just to pay for what they already have. Forget 100 new police officers. You get Baldrey coming up. You've got development approvals that have been waiting till after the election. So it's a lot just to run a city. Forget trying to figure out how you're going to fund some, in some cases, pretty over-the-top promises.
Yeah. Now, one could argue that the issue of crime was so important that at least he was seen addressing it. But part of that promise also, I would argue, led to the Vancouver Police Union endorsing Mr. Sim and his slate. Now, Salem, let me come to you. You are the Squamish Nation chairperson. You've obviously followed Vancouver politics very closely. In your mind, do endorsements like this work?
Endorsements have the effect of potentially bringing out a core base of supporters, especially if it's a party running and trying to rally a lot of support in terms of certain people getting excited around that candidate. There's also the effect that sometimes endorsements can cause your other opponent's party to come out. So I think in the case of the Vancouver Police Union endorsing a mayoral candidate for the first time has probably galvanized a lot of Vancouver voters who are on the more progressive side, who maybe in the past have supported defunding the police or supported the last council's decision to freeze the police budget. Are probably now, they saw the announcement and said, I'm going to come out actually and vote for Kennedy Stewart because of the actions of the police union. So, they can have an unintended impact, but we'll see how much that's going to affect the election.
Mary, my question to you is a little bit different. In my show, we get a lot of folks calling, complaining about a parking tax or other taxes that Vancouver's introduced. There seems to be, and maybe I'm wrong here, seems to be a greater push by residents. They want their city council to get back to basics, potholes, community centers, those types of things, and rather worrying about a paper cup fee or a parking tax. Are you getting that sense south of the Fraser?
Absolutely. And I think that is part of what people are experiencing now that they've come out of COVID and are thinking differently about their daily lives. Affordability has hit much more closely to home than we could have ever imagined. That makes people think, okay, what am I getting for the taxes I'm paying, right? If I'm paying all these taxes, that's fine, but I better be getting the services I expect. And in a lot of cases, people are feeling that they're not.
Well, promises are promises. Let's see if voters want back to basics or whether they want the Doug Mahal. Back to you guys.
Doug Mahal. Okay, thanks, Chaz.
Promises, promises indeed. McCallum made a few of them during the campaign. The way things are going right now, he won't get the chance to fulfill them because both Brenda Locke with Surrey Connect and Gordie Hogue with Surrey First have more votes so far. 15,217 for Brenda Locke, 12,236 for Gordie Hogue, around 11,700 for Doug McCallum. So what does this mean for the future of some of those big projects, and especially, first and foremost, I guess, the Surrey Police Service?
Yeah, I want to go back to something Richard pointed out in his last hit, which is we don't know where these votes are coming from in big municipalities and cities like Vancouver. We haven't got to Vancouver yet, but we will through the course of the night, and Surrey. It is not a homogenized electorate in Surrey or in Vancouver. They're big places, and neighborhoods vote different than other neighborhoods. So even though the gap is significant right now, we have seen instances in previous elections when an avalanche of ballot boxes from an area that hasn't been counted yet comes in and flips the results on its head. So, for example, in Surrey, North Surrey and Central Surrey is far more sort of leans NDP or Liberal than South Surrey, which is much more conservative, and that would favor Doug McCallum. We don't know if the ballot boxes that have come in are largely from North Surrey, South Surrey, or Central Surrey. And it's quite conceivable that a whole bunch of ballot boxes come in from a southern part of the riding or the city that may favor Doug McCallum more than the other candidates. And that's something to keep an eye on when we get to Vancouver tonight. Quilchena, Kerrisdale, Dunbar vote much more conservative, and that's Ken Sim territory, than the east side of Vancouver, which is going to be more friendly to someone like Kennedy Stewart, and Kitsilano, which is probably more friendly to Team and Colleen Hardwick. Again, it depends where these ballot boxes are coming in terms of tracking the vote throughout the evening.
71 out of 30 polls reporting, so more than half the polls in Surrey reporting with those numbers. Well, you are right, there might be some pockets in there that swing things a little bit.
It's looking iffy for McCallum, though, I have to say that.
Yep.
But let me ask you, Keith, one of Brenda Locke's big issues, of course, was the transition to the Surrey Police Service, and she's said she will, reverse it. Can that actually, and how could that actually happen at this point? It's pretty far down the road now.
She insists it can be done. Doug McCallum insists it cannot be done. The horse has left the barn here. I haven't got a really clear, straight answer from the province. It's something they just don't want to deal with right now. I think they just want to see the outcome of this, and then we'll see what happens. I do think a lot of stuff has happened to undo this thing. It's going to be very difficult, but if Brenda Locke becomes mayor, that's going to be her first priority. And it's in the interest of whoever wants to be the governor in BC to pay attention to what Surrey wants. Surrey drives the bus when it comes to provincial elections because there's so many MLAs. That's the battleground of BC.
Yeah, we talked about that for sure, and the provincial as well. All right, stand by. We do have some breaking results for you.
That's right. Out of New West, Richard Zussman joins us now with more. Richard.
Yeah, so let's take a look right now here at the Queen City. Patrick Johnstone is the next mayor of New Westminster, replacing Jonathan Cote, who decided not to run again this time. So he has won this thing. Ken Armstrong in second here. He's up nearly 900 votes. And so Patrick Johnstone will be the next mayor of New Westminster. This is a municipality in Metro Vancouver who has punched above its weight with Jonathan Cote. We'll see if they can continue that with Patrick Johnstone. I also want to show you Surrey here, and we're starting to get some more numbers, and we've been talking a lot about this. And you mentioned, Chris, 71 out of 130 polls reporting. You can see that gap. There's now emerged a top three here. Again, we don't know where the votes are coming from, but Brenda Locke is up almost 3,000 votes over Gordie Hogue, who's in second place. That could come as a surprise to a lot of people. And Doug McCallum, the incumbent, sitting in third. Ginny Sims well back in fourth place. Also work our way through. Let's take a look at Maple Ridge. And this is another one of those places where the incumbent could be in trouble. And that's what the early numbers are showing here. So with 9 of 13 polls reporting, so more than half the polls have reported, Dan Rumi is well out in front of Mike Morden. And we're not ready yet to declare Dan Rumi the next mayor, but things are looking really good for the former MP who's hoping to jump back now in this form in municipal politics. He is up 1,500 votes over Mike Morden. It had been an extremely dysfunctional council in Maple Ridge. And let's take a look at another place where there was high dysfunction, and that's Port Moody. Megan Lottie up over Steve Milani. We're early here, though. Just 2 of 10 reporting. Megan Lottie up more than 300 votes, 58% of the vote. Steve Milani, 42% of the vote. Rob Vagramov was the mayor. He decided not to run again. So those are big. And then as we move our way out, let's take a look in the valley here. And Abbotsford is a place where Henry Braun decided not to run again. He was seen as a steady hand during the floods in the community. And Manjit Sohi is out to an early lead, 7 out of 27 polls reporting. Ross Siemens, it was always seen as a two-way race here, and Manjit Sohi is up. Oh, here's a big jump. We just got some new numbers. That's always fun. Ross Siemens now is up 2,700 votes. So a big dump of polls. We're up to 11 out of 27, and Ross Siemens now at 66% of the vote. So this is a big lead, 2,700 votes, but you can see, just like we saw live, things can change really, really fast when you get a lot of votes coming in, and that's exactly what we saw here in Abbotsford.
All right, a lot of results to sort of process there. Keith, your thoughts? We've got a new mayor in New Westminster replacing Jonathan Cote. As Richard said, Jonathan Cote punched above his weight. He really, was a very strong, powerful voice for New Westminster. Patrick Johnstone will be coming in next. Can he continue that strong voice for New Westminster?
Well, he'll have a strong voice for New Westminster, but he's not going to have the same role that Jonathan Cote had. As we talked before, someone like Brad West, Malcolm Brodie, and others, George Hervey and Delta, are going to step to the fore. The seniority counts for something here. A rookie mayor is not going to have the same responsibilities. But back to the incumbents. So we've got 2 mayors in trouble, Mike Morden and also Doug McCallum. So we haven't even got to the lion's share of the municipalities, and already we've got 2 mayors in serious trouble. So right now, it looks very challenging for Doug McCallum to make up that gap, even with, as at my previous point and Richard's point, that geographically it really matters where these ballot boxes are coming from. But we haven't seen too many instances of someone in McCallum's position right now being able to flip that results on its head with more than half the polls reporting.
And the commonality there, dysfunctional councils. And I think voters are telling people, we want city halls to run. We want to make sure the garbage gets picked up, that the services are delivered, that the streets are cleared, and they don't want to see dysfunction in City Hall. And it's going to be really important to watch. Another place where we saw dysfunction in City Hall was Langley City. We haven't yet seen some results there, and that's another place where an incumbent, Val Vandenbroek, could be in trouble. I think that's going to be one of the themes tonight, is people want their city halls just to run, to deliver what they expect with their property taxes, and just leave all the complaining to somebody else.
And look at the council in Surrey tonight. We haven't seen the numbers there yet, but there was a Leger poll just a week ago that suggests that 75% of the residents of Surrey are unhappy with the council. So if Doug McCallum's going down, it's quite conceivable a number of incumbent councillors are going to be defeated tonight as well in Surrey. Well, there's the latest numbers in Surrey. Percentage for Brenda Locke dropped just a shade down to 29%. And Doug McCallum now, as I said, depends where these ballot boxes come in from. Evidently, a bunch of ballot boxes came in from McCallum territory because he's closed the gap to about 2,200.
Yeah, so we're not done yet, of course, in Surrey. Just going back to your point about Langley City, Richard, and Val Vandenbroek, she was censured by her own council earlier this year. So just one very glaring example of a council that was very dysfunctional. And we did see a number of those throughout Metro Vancouver and the rest of BC as well. Our Travis Prasad is actually in Langley for us tonight. We have 2 interesting races in Langley, of course, Langley City and Langley Township, Travis.
Yeah, that's right, Sophie, and I'm coming to you from Langley Township. We're at Redwoods Golf Course. This is the headquarters tonight for Rich Coleman and the Elevate Langley slate. Now, people started coming in here just before 8 p.m. There's been food, there's been drinks, there's a big crowd here. They see themselves on the TV screens right here. They are watching Global BC here at the Elevate Langley headquarters. Now, if you're at home thinking, I know the name Rich Coleman, it's because he's been a fixture in BC politics for about 25 years. He was first elected a BC Liberal MLA in what is now Langley East in 1996. He retired, semi-retired in 2020. And he says he's making a bid for mayor of Langley Township because he simply feels like
he's got more to offer. And he wanted to do it with a slate rather than an independent. He has name recognition, but he wanted to do it as a slate, he says, because he wanted to bring up the next generation of politicians and councillors. So he's got a storied history here, but he's also up against three other candidates who have been Langley Township councillors. So we'll see how things play out today. But yes, a very popular BC politician. You can hear the noise in here right now. It's a very lively spot. We'll see how things play out for Rich Coleman and the Elevate Langley slate tonight. Sophie?
Travis, thank you. I feel like he might be at the best party so far tonight.
It's certainly the most raucous background we've seen so far tonight. Thanks very much for that, Travis. Okay, we've got some more breaking news for you now. And let's take a look at the results from Maple Ridge. Right now, we have a new mayor in Maple Ridge, Dan Rumi.
Yeah, beating out the incumbent Mike Morden. We don't have the names up on the screen, but Dan Rumi, I was look it up on my laptop here. Yeah, he has beaten the incumbent Mike Morden. I was trying to find some numbers, but there you go. And in Delta, George Harvey, a very healthy lead over Peter van der Velden.
Keith, you want to take Surrey?
Yeah, you see Surrey again. McCallum's closed the gap a bit there. It hasn't changed much since it hasn't changed since the last time we looked. Gordy Hogue in third. And Ginny Sims has to be very disappointed with where she is right now. As I say, these numbers can change. Still 52% of the polls reported, which means half still have to come in. We don't know where that half is. It could be in McCallum territory, it could be in Brenda Locke territory, or it could be in Sims or Hogue. So it's still a close race, and we have not declared a victor there. And I don't think we're going to declare a victor there for quite some time.
We may not be here till 1 o'clock in the morning, but we're going to leave that one to percolate a little bit more for sure.
All right, stand by. We have Janet Brown, CKNW's Janet Brown, at Brenda Locke's headquarters tonight for us with a special guest. You have Linda Hepner with you, Janet.
We certainly do. A former mayor of the city of Surrey, Linda Hepner, whose son is also running tonight. Linda, it seems like it's looking pretty good for Brenda right now. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm just so thrilled for the whole team. It's looking good. Brenda looks like she could even be declared a winner fairly soon. And I see I can only go by the charts behind me, which are a little not visible at the moment. But so far, so good for my son as well.
So have the voters spoken loud and clear across the city of Surrey tonight then?
I think that even at the early polls, the numbers that came out told me they were looking for change. And I think tonight those numbers speak for themselves. And I could cry as a mom.
You can cry, it's okay. Sophie, would you believe that Brenda Locke is not here yet, even though it appears that she has been declared the winner tonight, mayor-elect in the city of Surrey? So people behind me are just waiting for Brenda Locke and members of her team to get off the elevator. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of jubilation tonight here in the banquet hall in Cloverdale. Back to you.
Okay, thanks, Janet. We have not declared Brenda Locke the winner yet, because as Keith, you point out, we could. I mean, it's a close race right now. She is in the lead, Keith, according to the last numbers we saw, but there are still more votes to be counted. And as you've pointed out, it depends on where those votes are coming from.
Yeah, thousands of votes still have to be counted, but I mean, odds right now favor Brenda Locke being the winner, but she's not there yet, at least from our calculations, because there's a lot of polls still yet to report. 38% have not come in yet, and we don't know where those ballot boxes, where those polling stations are located. But the odds favor Brenda Locke, certainly being the next mayor of Surrey, but we haven't declared her a winner yet.
Okay, there are some ridings, some cities where there is a large gap between the leader and the second candidate, and we'll check the results now in Langley Township. We talked about Rich Coleman earlier. Take a look at the numbers here. He is now in third place behind Blair Whitmarsh. Blair has 24% of the vote. Eric Woodward is elected at 46% of the vote, 3,319 votes there.
And still no results in from Langley City, where we talked about that very dysfunctional council, Val Vandenbroek, the incumbent mayor, being censured by her own council last May. Yeah,
Coleman's defeat, another indication something's going on in Langley. The demographics are changing. The NDP won both Langley seats in the last election. It never won there before. And now you've got Coleman, long-term MLA in that area for decades, suffering a crushing defeat here. Right now he's in third place, not even close to the first place finisher, who actually was a potential NDP candidate in the last provincial election, but dropped out. So this is more evidence that perhaps the NDP-type party's chances are improving in Langley, Township and City, and they're going to get another riding as a result of redistribution. And the demographics are changing. Younger families are moving out there. They can't afford living west of there, and that changes the voting patterns, and we're seeing that reflected in tonight's mayoral result. A convincing win for Eric Woodward in Langley Township for sure. Okay, thanks very much, Keith. More results coming in now, too.
Yeah, Richard Zussman, what do you have for us?
Langley Township, the second fastest growing community in the province. The fastest growing community in British Columbia is Kelowna. So let's have a look there, and this could be one of the big surprises of the night here. We knew that Tom Dias had a chance here in Kelowna, but he is off to a big lead over Colin Basran. Just 3 of 21 polls reporting, so it's early here, but this is a substantial lead, more than 1,300 votes. These two used to be friends. They're now political rivals. Basran has been one of the better-known mayors in this province, and he could be facing defeat tonight. Let's take a look at a community where we know there will be a new mayor, and this one could be seen as a bit of a surprise here. There are 3 councillors running: Dieter Duty, Sadie Hunter, Arjun Singh. But Reed Hammer Jackson, right out here, community advocate involved in the sports community in Kamloops, he is out in front by more than 400 votes over Dieter Duty. With Ken Christian retiring, we know there will be a new mayor. Could it be Reed Hammer Jackson? It's looking pretty good so far. And another community where we know we're getting a new mayor, that is in Prince George. And this one's extremely close. Again, early days, 1 out of 13 polls reporting. But the sense was from Prince George, these would be the 2 candidates to watch, Simon Yu and Terry McConaughey. Simon Yu is out to the early start in Prince George. Lynn Hall, longtime mayor there, announced he was retiring, would not be running again. And I want to go back to Metro Vancouver in one of those places where we're going to focus in a lot tonight. And that is right here. Let me zoom us in. Take a look at Port Moody, and we have some new votes in. 5 of 10 polls reporting, so half. My math's okay with that one. Megan Lottie is up about 400 votes over Steve Milani. Rob Vagramov not running again. We will get a new mayor here, and Megan Lottie is out to a little bit of a lead. This is obviously one we're going to be watching very, very closely.
No doubt, yeah. It's obvious that we're getting a lot of results in, and when you get half the number of polls reporting, you know, you get a pretty good indication of what's happening. But we are cautious on our desk that, you know, we're not going to make the call until we are 100% sure, even if you do hear it somewhere else.
So let's bring in those results. We have some updated results from Surrey and the mayoral race there, which is very, very close. Brenda Locke with 20,800 or so votes, and McCallum right behind her. We still have 25% of the votes left to be counted. So still tight there, Keith.
Yeah, so 10 minutes ago, Doug McCallum was trailing by 2,400. Now he's trailing by 1,100. So this shows you again how fast things can change in a very populated region where you've got ballot boxes coming in from different areas of the city or municipality that favor one candidate over another. We've seen this numerous times in Vancouver and Surrey, which is why the makeup of the vote can change very quickly. I remember the federal election a few years ago in West Vancouver. The West Vancouver Liberal candidate gave his victory speech. And I pointed out in the course of his victory speech, so many votes came in from a part of the riding in West Vancouver that his opponent overtook him during his victory speech and ultimately claimed victory. So some people can jump the gun here a little early, particularly in a populated region. And we seem to be seeing some voting levels that I don't think a lot of people anticipated. So it's not done yet in Surrey, although the gap is closing. But McCallum hasn't reached the finish line yet with Locke.
And one of the things that's really interesting to me, we heard about this a lot going into the campaign, is that Gordie Hogue and Brenda Locke would be going after the similar type of voter. And Gordie Hogue is doing a lot better than I think a lot of people anticipated. He has a big team behind him. Surrey First is a well-oiled political machine, and they clearly identified vote and went out and got those people to vote. And the more votes that go to Gordie Hogue, it seemed they may pull away from Brenda Locke and open the door up for Doug McCallum. So this number, 22% for Gordie Hogue, really stands out to me. Better result than we expected, and I think we still could be in for a few more surprises in Surrey as we wait for more of these polls to report.
Jenny Sims and Suk Dhaliwal just kind of dropping off the board there. But yeah, that is definitely a tight three-way race in Surrey at the moment. Less than 1,100 votes between Brenda Locke and Doug McCallum right now.
It's worth remembering Gordie Hogue and Brenda Locke both were BC Liberal MLAs in Surrey. So Richard's absolutely right. They're probably fighting over the same pool of voters who used to vote for them at the provincial level. And that can allow a candidate like McCallum to come up the middle.
We're just about at 9 o'clock, which is around the time we were hoping to start seeing results coming in from the city of Vancouver. So let's bring in Sarah McDonald at Kennedy Stewart's Forward Together headquarters. You know, a few polling stations, Sarah, were staying open for an extra hour because of hydro issues, planned power outages on Election Day for some reason. But when we start to get those results in, this is, you know, a repeat, or potentially a repeat of the close election in 2018, which you experienced.
It absolutely could be. We're watching these results, hopefully going to start coming in soon as well. This is a civic election, of course, but we know that the provincial New Democrats are watching what is happening here in Vancouver very closely tonight. Kennedy Stewart and his team and the political left in this province are really hoping the city of Vancouver does not see a political shift tonight that this city has not seen in over a decade. For the past 14 years, this city has been led by progressive mayors and largely progressive councils. So center-left mayor and largely center-left majority council. That could all change tonight if Ken Sim and his ABC party are successful, especially if Sim clinches that ABC majority council he's been going for. It's been a caveat in a lot of his promises on the campaign trail. Now, the dark horse, of course, in this race is Colleen Hardwick. We do expect her to split the vote. We expect her to steal some votes from both sides tonight, especially from her former political colleague, Ken Sim. Reminder now, Sim lost the election in 2018 by fewer than 1,000 votes, 957 ballots. This is anybody's game tonight still. Plus, the turnout at advance polls this time around compared to 2018 was substantially higher. That can be an indicator that voters are casting their ballots for change. Is that the case this time around? Kennedy Stewart and his team are certainly hoping that is not the case, but we will find out soon as we wait for those polls to start coming in. Chris, Sophie.
You were hoping they came in that one final second.
I was looking for an update.
Yeah, we're watching too.
Nothing yet.
We're all waiting with bated breath, Sarah. All right, we'll check back with you, and hopefully next time we check back with you, there will be numbers.
Okay, so obviously the big challenger leading up to this to Kennedy Stewart is Ken Sim. He was tied in the latest polls with Kennedy Stewart, the incumbent. Ken Sim running a new party after losing last time as an NPA member. Now he's got ABC, a better city. Organization, enthusiasm, those are things that win elections. Were they able to put that together? Well, the man in charge of that for Ken Sim is standing by with Ahmad Agahi at ABC headquarters right now. Ahmad?
That's right, Chris. So I'm here with Kareem Alam, who is the campaign director for ABC Vancouver and Ken Sim. Kareem, you've told me tonight that you and your party are confident. Tell me why.
We're confident because we took a strategy early on to talk directly to Vancouver voters, and my experience running campaigns for 20 years is when you go straight to the doors, look voters in the eyes, and ask them what they want and deliver for them in a platform, that tends to lend to a good result.
The last election, Ken Sim came up short. Not by much, but he essentially was the loser. What makes him the winner this time?
Again, I think the strategy of going directly to the voters and engaging them at the doors was a good one. But beyond that, he built a broad-based coalition this go-around that drew from every corner of this city, recruiting some of the most diverse candidates. He didn't draw from federal Liberals. He didn't draw from federal Conservatives. He didn't go to NDPers. He went to community leaders directly.
one of the campaign promises that you've mentioned has polled well is the promise of the 100 police officers and the 100 mental health nurses. It's an ambitious promise. Can Ken Sim and your ABC party deliver on this?
Absolutely. We've heard loud and clear that the approach to public safety needs to be one that's been led with compassion. The CAR 87 program, which combines a police officer with a mental health nurse, has been in Vancouver since 1978. It's been adopted all over the world, and it's been stunted right here where it was founded. It's time to bring Vancouver-based solutions that have been adopted all over the world back to Vancouver to solve our frontline challenges.
That was Kareem Alam from the ABC Vancouver party. A very confident man, a very confident candidate here to take over the job as the mayor of Vancouver, Ken Sim. He's upstairs with the rest of the candidates. Kareem is rushing to join him because the results are coming in. Certainly he has some results coming into his phone that are favorable as of now. So we'll see if that continues throughout the night. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks very much, Ahmad. Still waiting on some official results here, but we do have some breaking news.
We do, and it's in Surrey, so let's take a look. Brenda Locke, we are now declaring Brenda Locke elected as the next mayor of Surrey. Okay, sounds like she is speaking now. Let's listen in.
All right, we're trying to figure out some audio issues right now with Brenda Locke, who is the mayor-elect in Surrey. We have confirmed that with 28,611 votes, 108 of 130 polls reporting. She's got more than 28% of the vote over Doug McCallum, who has 26.68% of the vote, but that's not enough.
All right, Keith, what do you think? Brenda Locke, I mean, it's a narrow victory. Did you expect McCallum to perhaps not have as good a showing or not give her as tight a race?
Well, I pointed out when you got such a crowded field of 5 credible candidates, it was very easy to see someone winning with 25, 26, 27% of the vote. And sure enough, or less than 30% of the vote. And that appears to be what's happened. You've got 3 candidates. I don't think I've seen 3 mayoral candidates all in the 20s. It's usually, 40, 30, 20, something like that. But Brenda Locke is, I think she sort of carved out the anti-McCallum vote quicker than any other with her opposition to the police and riding that horse through the media for some time and then really criticizing McCallum when it came to his whole public mischief and saying he's bringing ridicule to City Council. She got more publicity and media coverage than any other candidate on those issues, and I think that resonated with the voters much more than anything her opponents had to say.
When he came into office 4 years ago, you could tell he tackled the job like he had a very strong mandate from voters, even though, with low turnout, you're being voted in by a fraction of the people who actually live in your city. But if you take a look at the number of voters, 62% of voters tonight so far, with 83% of polls reporting, have said they want somebody other than McCallum. Okay, I think we've got audio issues straightened out here. Here's Brenda Locke.
We have a beautiful, beautiful mosaic of culture with First Nations and international people from all over the world. They don't know yet how really amazing we are in Surrey. But still, we have work to do, and we have our work cut out for us. We need better healthcare services. We need to stabilize public safety. We need to clean up. Faster and simpler for permitting with a single application pass. We need to bring stakeholders back to the tables for better solutions.
Brenda, with you as a man, that's all gonna happen.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Rick. first things are first. How about, first of all, we need to keep the Surrey RCMP right here in Surrey. We need to do better resourcing for our fire services because that's also a public safety priority. We need to avoid a $521 million expenditure, Carnell. And let's not pass on another $500 tax increase to people, especially at this time. Especially to families. Let's build a city we are proud to call home. Let's let everyone know we are a modern agriculture, manufacturer, IT city that is diverse of its people and an engine of this province. Speaking of engines, I want to thank the very incredible team of candidates that ran with me in this race, and I want to get them to come on up as I call their names. Mr. Harry Baines. Mr. Gordon Hepner. Miss Ramona Captain, come on up, Ramona. Ms. Pardeep Cooner. Mr. Will Kwok. Ms. Rochelle Prasad. Mr. Sebastian Saida. And Mr. Rob Stott. All of these people worked so very hard for your vote. They pounded the pavement for weeks, day after day. They made calls, they went to events, and they reminded me what a really, really incredibly great team looks like. They absolutely were incredible, and I thank them so very much. And I want to also thank all the volunteers who made this happen, the generosity of your time, your support. We could not have done this without you. Today was a culmination of that. We had over 200 people out there on the huskings. Thank you. Thank you all. To our donors, you are so integral to our campaign. You helped us buy signs to signal that signaled to everyone it's time to vote. You helped us with advertising, with office space, and events like this, and so very much more. Thank you to all those donors. I want to thank some of the larger teams that really helped us out there. I really want to take a thank you, big thank you to the people of Kittrus. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Friends of Bear Creek Park. You're amazing. Thank you to our families. Thank you for your supporting all of our efforts. My family's here, and I know others are here. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you for being a part of this actually very, very incredible journey. To the voters of Surrey, I want to thank you for trusting us to make a difference. Thank you for saying that character counts and ethics matter. And you know, I'm not going to thank any individual people except for one. And I want to really seriously thank my colleague for 4 years, Councillor Jack Hundal, who we have spent 4 years working on this and getting ourselves to this date. And Jack, I don't know where you are, you're here somewhere. Thank you for always being there and being a part of this. We appreciate it. And I want to thank every other person that ran. I want to thank all the other candidates, the other mayor candidates, the other council candidates, and school trustees. It takes a lot to run, and so thank you for ensuring that democracy is alive and well and working in Surrey. Thank you. So Surrey, you really had something to say. You stood up like never before, and you made your voices heard, and I have to just admire this city, and that's why I love this city. It's all about moving forward, and I can tell you that this has been the most magical campaign ever, and people all around British Columbia and Canada are looking exactly at what happened here in our town. So with that, I'm going to tell you we're getting to work tomorrow morning. We got a little bit of work to do. But thank you all, and please have a very, very good night. Thank you.
What a spectacular fall from grace for Doug McCallum. Brenda Locke winning and really embarking on a transformation of a lot of the work that McCallum put into a new police service in Surrey. She says she's going to unravel it all.
So it's another election about policing in Surrey. In 2018, it was one of McCallum's two big promises, SkyTrain and a civic police force, and it's all being presumably undone in 2022, Keith.
Not the SkyTrain. SkyTrain's fine.
Not the SkyTrain, but the policing, yeah.
Well, we'll see if it's undone. Brenda Locke insists it can be. By the way, as it stands right now, she's got a majority on council. 4 members of her party, along with her, have been elected. So that should settle things down considerably. The Safe Surrey Coalition has suffered a loss of a couple seats. The Surrey First added to their level of 1 seat, so they've got 2 now. So a more stable Surrey council going forward. SkyTrain's the lock. The NDP government loves, just like any provincial government, loves big infrastructure projects. But the Surrey Police one, we start again. We'll see if it can be undone or whether this has to go forward. But she's now heading a council that, as it stands now, her party has the majority. So she's not going to be fighting off challenges to her view of what should be done to the RCMP or Surrey Police. But again, as she go back into talks with the provincial government, I'm feeling Mike Farmers is probably dreading having to raise this issue again, hoping that Surrey could deal with this all by itself, but it may bring Victoria back into the fray.
He was reluctant to deal with it when Doug McCallum brought it forward, and now to try to unravel it is difficult. Okay, we've got some more results.
We do. So one incumbent down in Surrey and another one down in Langley City now.
Val Vandenbroek, who got into some mix-ups with her council. And in Langley Township here, we were keeping an eye on Rich Coleman, who has huge name recognition, obviously a lot of experience in politics, but Eric Woodward is the Langley Township mayor-elect with 45% of the vote there.
And in Abbotsford, Ross Siemens now a healthy lead. When we're declaring him elected, that elected thing is hard to see, but he is now elected in Maple Ridge.
That is true.
And just in case it wasn't clear in Langley City, Nathan Pahal, we're declaring him elected over Val Vandenbroek. And in Chilliwack, Ken Popov is going back, beating his challenger Ian Carmichael handily, 73% to 27% of the vote.
All right, we were all wondering what was going to happen in New West. Obviously replacing Jonathan Cote, a big deal there. And we now have a mayor-elect in New West. There will be a new mayor. Grace Key is standing by right now with the details. Grace?
Yeah, we're just here at the new Westminster City Hall. Joining us right now, Patrick Johnstone. Congratulations on your victory here. The results, 6,600 for you, 76. Next one was 5,227. So tell us about what you think the voters really said today with these vote numbers.
I think that our message through the new Westminster election has been about looking forward for the city, about the direction of where the city is going. It's been a really positive message, and it's also a message that we're doing the right things in the city. We've been doing a lot of work protecting affordable housing, building new affordable housing, addressing the climate crisis. We're doing good things in the city, and I think the voters have told us they want us to keep on that path.
Yeah, tell us what you think are sort of the top issues right now for the people here in New Westminster.
Oh, well, the top issue in the region is housing, affordable housing, and accessibility of housing. So I think we've done really good work in New Westminster on that, but we have more work to do, like most cities in the region. But climate also came up a lot this year in New Westminster. We lost a lot of people in the heat dome event. People are noticing the climate crisis, and it was a huge issue this election.
So what are some of the ways that you're going to try and overcome, say, the climate change issue here?
Oh, well, of course, we have a lot of work to do in our community energy plan in order to reduce our greenhouse gases produced in the city. But we're also doing a lot of adaptation work to make sure that people are safer in the city when the next heat dome event happens, or when things like that, this heat disruption happens like that again. We're going to be more ready to prepare to protect people.
Some of the small business owners have certainly mentioned some of their concerns in historic downtown area. What are some of the things that you're going to do to try and revitalize that? Yeah, I look forward to talking to downtown again about some of the work we can do. I think downtown is going through a bit of a transition. We have a lot of people moving downtown, and I think there's some work we can do to make sure we get some of the more vacant sites activated again. We get some development for retail at the street level downtown. And again, our BIA and our partners downtown are doing such good work. We just want to make sure that we're supporting them. And how much, now some of the numbers here, let me just see if I can get these right. So you had 4 Community First councillors, right? And school trustees was 6, I believe, with Community First. I mean, that's a pretty sweeping victory there. It is an incredible team I'm running with. I was running with 12 incredible candidates. They all worked really hard at the doors. They all really knew their stuff. I'm really proud to have run with all of them. I'm disappointed that a couple of our candidates didn't get through. But I'm just so proud of the work they did, and it's been about team the whole time. We've lifted each other up. Some people had challenges during the election, and we lifted each other up, and it was heartening to run with this group of people. Yeah. How confident are you just to get some of your platform things forward there with this majority? I think that we're going to have no trouble getting stuff moved forward in the city of New Westminster. All right, thanks a lot for joining us. Thank you. So again, there you have it. We have a new mayor here in New Westminster, and that is Patrick Johnstone. Back to you.
Grace, thanks very much for that, and congratulations to Patrick Johnstone in New West.
And talking about majorities on council, Keith, you referenced it when we were talking about Surrey just a moment ago. Let's take a closer look at the results for council in Surrey. Linda Annis was also, very well known incumbent councillor in Surrey, so she topped the polls, it looks like, for council candidates. But you mentioned, Keith, that a number of Brenda Locke's Surrey Connect team will be going to council this term as well. Yeah, you see Rob Stutt there and Pardeep Kaur-Kunar, along with Harry Baines, and one more on the previous board. Those are all 4 Surrey Connect candidates. Surrey Safe Coalition, the last 2 candidates, Doug Elford and Mandeep Nagra, are at the bottom right now. So a big win for Surrey Connect, a big loss for Safe Surrey Coalition. And again, just to go back to the mayors, by my count, that's 3 Metro mayors have been defeated, plus Colin Basra in Kelowna, so 4 mayors are down. You look at the mayors who are new, and by my count, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 new mayors in Metro Vancouver. I think that might be
I'm not sure it's a record, but it's a lot. It's a lot of new mayors in Metro Vancouver. And you see here in Port Moody elected Megan Laddie. You know, Megan Laddie was first elected to elected office way back in 1996. And I'm told by Tri-City MLAs that this was kind of a nasty fight. There was a lot of social media stuff going on here. That was one of the more negative campaigns in the municipal elections. And there's other ones as well. We'll get to those as we go through the night. But social media played a big role in some of the fights.
That was definitely one Richard Zussman told us to keep an eye on tonight, and one of those rookies, and really remaking the Metro Vancouver Mayor's Council, which has a huge responsibility, marshalling some of these big infrastructure projects and working together to make sure that people can move around and live.
Yeah, 8 rookies now.
All right, let's bring in Richard Zussman, since you mentioned him. We were watching Port Moody. You talked, Richard, about Megan Laddie and Steve Milani being a development versus anti-development. Really, that was the big question in Port Moody.
Yeah, and it's also the big question in some other parts of this province. And Keith, you want to add another name to your list? Let's see right here at the top of the screen what's going on in West Vancouver. And Mark Sager is going to be the next mayor of West Vancouver. And this is also a community where there was a big debate around transit, around housing, around development. And Mark Sager, the mayor going all the way back to 1990 to 1996, will be back in the mayor's chair defeating Marianne Booth in West Vancouver. So yet another mayor down in Metro Vancouver. Let's continue on the North Shore, where Linda Buchanan is up over Guy Haywood by a little bit more than 250 votes. 3 of 12 polls reporting. Still early here in North Vancouver. Let's take a look at the district of North Vancouver, and this is going to be one of the most interesting races still out there. Obviously, we're waiting for those Vancouver results, but this one is crucial as well, as we have Mike Little, a little bit more than 400 votes over Matthew Bond. So this is one of those races we will keep going to again and again throughout the evening. We haven't talked a lot about Richmond. The result was expected here. Malcolm Brody is up, way up over John Roston here. About 7,000 votes. So the expectation there is that Malcolm Brody will continue to serve as the mayor of Richmond. And let's have a look in Coquitlam. Again, Richard Stewart has been the mayor for a long time in this community. Adele Gamar was hoping to put a sort of push on to the incumbent mayor, but it looks like Richard Stewart will continue up more than 3,000 votes in Coquitlam. But, add that name to the list there, Keith, as we have Mark Sager now as the mayor in West Vancouver. And this really is a night of change in Metro Vancouver and across the province. And all of that will change the way in which the region, the mayors work with the provincial government, the federal government, as voters obviously wanted something to change, and they are getting that change.
Okay, thank you, Richard. It seems like, and we do have some more results we want to get to right away in Vancouver, but it seems like if an incumbent wins, they win big, or they lose. So we'll see if that plays out. We'll see if that plays out for the rest of the cities tonight. Okay, here are the early results in Vancouver.
Ken Sim with a big lead early on. Only 4% of the polls reporting, but 60% of the vote at the moment to Kennedy Stewart's 22%, and Colleen Hardwick with 11%. Mark Marison in fourth place at this moment with just 3%. But right now, very early on, Ken Sim looking to have a sizable lead at the moment.
Yeah, you'd rather be in Ken Sim's position right now than any of the others. But again, where did those votes come from? What areas of the city? Did they all come in from Kerrisdale, which would be Ken Sim territory? Or have we yet to see open any ballot boxes in Killarney or the east side? That's where Kennedy Stewart's strength lies. So early days, but that Ken Sim has to like what he sees there, with even a small percentage reporting.
All right, let's find out what our panel has to think about all these incumbents falling, new mayors, new councils. Jez, lots of change going on right now.
Lots of change going on. I was looking at those Brenda Locke results out of Surrey and listening to her speech a few minutes ago. What fascinates me about that win, I don't think people fully understand this. Whenever I do a commercial break on CKNW, I could hear a Doug Delivers commercial during the election campaign. I never heard of one Brenda Locke ad. In regards to money, she did not have a lot of money. She did not raise a lot of money. In regards to volunteers, didn't have many volunteers compared to the other camps. In regards to Go TV, get out the vote, she didn't have a lot of vote. Going back to what Keith said, she's been there as an incumbent, fighting, challenging Mr. McCallum and earning that media, and that's in one of the cases, in many cases, what got her past the finish line today. I'm going to go to our panel. Let's go to Mary Polak on this issue. Mary, speak to me a little bit about not having the dollars that a Doug McCallum would or some of the other camps would. I mean, Brenda Locke's victory in many cases seems to me that the public were looking for one person that could represent that frustration and anger where they could park their vote. Because generally when candidates don't have the dollars, don't have the volunteers, they generally don't win.
Except that she was riding the same wave that Diane Watts rode in 2005. I mean, it's really uncanny, the similarities. You had, at that time, Diane Watts running against an incumbent McCallum who was facing, surprise, surprise, chaos on city council, scandal, lack of transparency at City Hall. When you cut away the issues that we've talked about around crime, housing, etc., really in Surrey, what people were talking about was, once again, chaos at City Hall, scandal in the mayor's office, and lack of transparency there. So isn't it interesting? And now here's Brenda. She has the chance to do what Diane Watts did, create a pathway for herself as a reformer, as somebody who's rebuilding a Surrey that people want to see. Now she gets the chance to try that out. We'll see how successful she is.
We're so sorry we got to break in. Jazz, thank you very much. Doug McCallum is at the podium now. We're going to listen in.
Because I've worked hard for the city for many years, and it's maybe... And maybe it's time for me to finally put my feet up a little bit and enjoy life. So thank you very, very much again for all of you being here.
That was quick.
All right. Doug McCallum conceding defeat, presumably. We didn't hear the whole speech, but saying he'd like to put his feet up now, or maybe it's time to put his feet up. So we will go back to Jazz and the panel, and apologies for interrupting Mary there, Jazz.
No, I mean, he had to speak. It was a very short speech. Mary, let me go back to you on this a little bit. You were talking about the fact that Ms. Locke didn't have many volunteers, many dollars, but she certainly seemed to be the one voice that voters wanted to park their vote with in regards to opposition to Mr. McCallum.
Yeah, history repeating itself. And you see Brenda highlighting the same kinds of issues that Diane Watts highlighted in her win against McCallum in 2005. I mean, McCallum deserves some credit. He's, I think, the longest serving Surrey mayor, not consecutively. But he did the same thing over again, right? Chaos at City Hall, scandal, and lack of transparency. Brenda now has to try and deliver on what she's promised. But it goes to show that if you capture the mood of the public, it isn't the spending or the advertising that's going to get you over the plate. That has to do, in this case, with people feeling that what she had to say resonated for them.
Mm-hmm. El Salem, let me go to you. El Salem is the Squamish Nation chairperson. Let's go over to Langley City Township, where Rich Coleman, as Sophie had said, high profile, former cabinet minister, former deputy premier, did not win, came in third place at this particular point. He refers to Langley Township and Langley as Coleman country, but it looks like Coleman country has been annexed by a lot of younger families. The median age in this country is 41. I just checked on Google here. The median age in Langley City is also 41. Talk to me a little bit about how these 41-year-olds, which would make them elderly millennials, are driving discourse in various issues in and around municipalities today.
We've definitely seen a shift in demographics over the last 4 years. I think the pandemic contributed to this, people moving out of the urban centers and more into their suburban areas, even as far as Chilliwack. And you look at the election results from the last provincial election, you start to see some of the areas where the NDP are winning in areas they never used to. So you're definitely seeing that shift. And then interestingly enough, on a lot of the races, we're seeing a lot of new mayors get elected. But these are often mayors who are driving a pro-housing, pro-climate change, more of a progressive brand of leadership in a lot of places like New West and Port Moody and Maple Ridge and others. So there is some interesting shifts happening. I think a reinstatement of the mandate that some of those places either already had, or a shift towards perhaps a more progressive. And a lot of that's happening in the suburban areas outside of the urban core.
Andrea, Keith was mentioning, I was just at the number down here, 8 new mayors potentially in Metro Vancouver elected. You've been in those meetings at the council level, at the Metro Vancouver level. What advice would you give them today? I know they're going to be enjoying the evening, but what advice would you want to give them for the weeks and months ahead?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big challenge of election campaigns is that the point of it is to draw differences between yourself and your opponents. And that's fine. Like that's as it should be. It's important for the voters to see that. Good governance, however, is about coming together. And that's coming together as a team on city council. It's coming together regionally as a team, either at the Metro region or at the Mayor's Council of TransLink. It's coming together with your federal and provincial counterparts, regardless of what colored jersey you might wear in a provincial or federal election. You need to take that off and figure out ways to be effective at working with those. So, I mean, have fun tonight, maybe even tomorrow. Enjoy some time with your family and friends. But come Monday, it's really about reaching out and building those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrea Reimer, Mary Pollock, Hal Salem. Thank you. Chris, Sophie, Keith, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Jess. We have more results now coming in from Vancouver. And as we've been discussing, it's not just the race for mayor, folks. The council, how the council is made up will very much determine how the next 4 years go. So here's what we have in Vancouver at the moment. Just went by very quickly, but ABC is at the top there.
Old colleague Peter Meisner is in there.
Yeah, Peter Meisner, who used to be one of our online reporters here at Global. Adrian Carr from the Green Party, typically a big vote getter in Vancouver as well. There we go. Sarah Kirby-Young, re-elected. Lisa Dominato. All of those names are on the ABC slate. Kirby-Young, Dominato, and Rebecca Bly, incumbent councillors, of course.
All right, we should mention that only 4 out of 100 for Ken Sim in terms of winning the mayoral race, because if his party's doing that well at the council level, you got to figure he's going to be doing very well at the mayoral level as well.
Well, I just wanted to go over those numbers again. Again, only 4 out of 106 polls reporting in our system, but Ken Sim came out of the gates with 60% of the vote in those first 4 polls. I haven't seen results since then, but absolutely, it looks like a clean slate at the top for ABC Vancouver there as far as the councillors go. So a good start for him, but again, we're not there yet with just 4% of polls reporting.
No, we know it went, when 4 years ago it was very close. Definitely not close right at the moment, but they're just starting the count now. Let's check in with our Imad Agahi, who is at ABC headquarters with one of those councillors who has a good showing at the moment, Lisa Dominato. Imad.
That's right. And just before we speak to Lisa, I just want to let you know that this room is very full. There are hundreds of people here. You just can't see them because they're behind the camera, and where we're positioned is at the stage because we're expecting at any moment to get results and this crowd to erupt. Not seeing results on the screen yet, but there is eager anticipation in anticipation of those results. We have an opportunity to speak to one of the incumbent councillors, Lisa Dominato, running under this new ABC banner this time around. How are you feeling tonight?
Well, really optimistic right now. I feel like we've had great momentum, and with some of the early polls coming in, I think we're seeing that.
Right on cue there. So that is the cheer that you're hearing from the first set of results that have been shown on the screen here. Lisa, this is electric.
This is the change that I think Vancouverites want. We've been hearing it on the doorsteps as we've been going around, is the public wants change in Vancouver. They want to change in the mayor seat, and Ken Sim and ABC Vancouver bring that fresh voice.
What have you been hearing on the street from people? Because I've heard you've knocked on more than 70,000 doors throughout this campaign, a long campaign that you came into well-resourced.
Well, I've heard very clearly clearly that they want leadership from the mayor, and Ken Sim can bring that. They care about housing and affordability, community safety, public services, and they see that Ken Sim and ABC Vancouver can deliver that. And that's what I've been hearing on the doorstep, is they're looking for that leadership, and that Ken Sim can bring that to this mayor's seat.
That is Lisa Dominato, one of the incumbent mayors, the incumbent candidates for City Council here, who is running under the same slate as the mayor that is in the lead in Vancouver. The mayor would-be is upstairs if those results hold, and there is anticipation that he could be down here pretty soon tonight. You heard the sound of the room, and that is just after one poll.
4 out of 106 polls reporting, but again, Ken Sim got 60% of the vote in that early vote dump. So things look good for Ken, for Lisa Dominato, and the others running for council under the ABC banner.
Yeah, so definitely loud at ABC headquarters. Let's see what the atmosphere is like at Forward Together headquarters. That's Kennedy Stewart's headquarters, and that's where we find our Sarah McDonald tonight. Sarah.
Not quite as jubilant here at this point. You heard those cheers behind Ahmad there, but we are watching these results come in. We actually have a bit of an update. We now have 10 out of 106 voting places reporting. That's about 8,000 ballots cast. As Ahmad was saying, we are seeing at this point Ken Sim and his ABC Vancouver team taking a strong lead. It is still early. I have somebody here with me who is also watching the results roll in. She knows a lot about elections firsthand. She's also worked with Kennedy Stewart at a federal level as a member of Parliament. Jenny Kwan, NDP Member of Parliament for Vancouver East. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first off, we're watching these results in real time come in. You're here obviously supporting your former political colleague and friend, Kennedy Stewart. Why should he have a second mandate? Why should he have a second term in Vancouver City Hall?
Well, obviously there are a lot of challenges before Vancouverites, and Kennedy really puts his heart and soul into the issues. He is thoughtful about the issues and sometimes maybe not as vocal about what he's accomplished. But that said, he puts a lot of thought into it and pushes ahead. When he first got elected in the last mandate, one of the first things he did was to fight for Vancouver to get better transit and funding for transit. And that was the first order of business. For so long, we talked about wanting to extend transit all the way out to UBC, and it's just been talk. Well, Kennedy actually got it done, as an example. But it shouldn't stop there. There's obviously much more work to be done. Another example, I have to tell you, the situation in the downtown east side, it is so devastating. And the reality is, with the drug poisoning situation, people are dying. And Kennedy had the courage to put himself out there. It's not always easy to sometimes take an approach that is not necessarily popular even, right? But he took it. He took it there and fought for people who are dying, whose voices are often just lost and forgotten, and went all the way to Ottawa to fight for decrim, to ensure that people who are dying have a chance to succeed. As I always say, dead people don't detox, and we need to actually address that and face that issue dead on. And Kennedy did that as well. There's a housing crisis. I mean, I can sort of go on with many, many things to which I think work needs to continue in the direction that supports the people.
Now, on that note, a lot of those issues, as you mentioned, Kennedy Stewart has also taken a lot of heat on when it comes to rising homelessness, rising overdose deaths, rising street disorder in the city of Vancouver. He has said himself, he's like, I'm not very good at talking myself up, as you mentioned. I'm not very good at talking about my achievements. That may prove actually to be his downfall tonight if these polls continue in the direction they are going. From your perspective, is it fair, the criticism he's receiving?
Well, these issues is not just up to the mayor, it's actually up to all levels of government. And one thing I can tell you, to my frustration as well, is that the federal government hasn't been at the table. I wrote a joint letter with the mayor, Kennedy Stewart, before the election, and then also with the local MLA, Melanie Mark, calling on the federal government to address the homelessness crisis, the tent city that's going on, and asking them to be a real partner at the table. The feds never moved. And so the city of Vancouver can't do it alone, and we need the other levels of government to step up and be a true partner.
Okay, Jenny, I have other questions I want to ask you, but we're actually about to have opening remarks here from Brenda Bailey, I believe. So we will let you go. Thank you for your time. Jenny Kwan, NDP, Member of Parliament for Vancouver East. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Back to you.
All right, Sarah, thank you very much. And a new dump of numbers, too, showing Kennedy Stewart's in a distant second behind Ken Sim, who still has about 60% of the vote, with 10 out of 106 polls reporting now.
And Keith, that what Jenny Kwan was talking about, that the feds didn't come to the table, that Vancouver can't do it alone. That was a sort of a narrative that Mayor Stewart brought up a lot during the pandemic, that Vancouver couldn't do it alone, and it didn't win him a lot of friends in Victoria.
Sorry, someone was talking to my ear. I didn't hear anything you said.
Thank you for your honesty.
It wasn't very brilliant, so I'll tell you that. No, I was just talking about, Jenny Kwan was just discussing with Sarah that Vancouver can't solve all these problems alone, and that was something that Kennedy Stewart talked a lot about, especially during the pandemic. He kept calling on the provincial government to step up, to to help out.
Despite those endorsements he got from some NDP cabinet ministers, I can tell you the relationship's been a little frayed around the edges because of his demands that Victoria somehow bail his city out alone at a time when everyone was struggling and suffering and going through this extraordinary situation. So I understand we have some more breaking results.
We do, and they're in your neck of the woods, in just down the street from you in
Marianne
Victoria.
Alto. Yeah, so Marianne Alto, former NDP staffer, former councillor, has been declared elected over Stephen Andrew. Really a two-person race here. Stephen Andrew, a former television broadcaster and a former councillor as well. As I said off the top, Victoria historically is an NDP town, and we have nothing coming out of Nanaimo. We'll expect Leonard Krogh to hang on there as a former NDP MLA there. So big news in Victoria.
No doubt about it. Okay, we have Kylie, who has been at Marianne Alto's headquarters for us this evening. Let's check in with her right now that it's now Mayor-elect Alto in Victoria.
Yeah. It is official. She's making her remarks right now, so I'm going to let you listen to those. But Stephen Andrew has conceded the mayoral race to Marianne Alto. I'll let her take it away from here.
Next 4 years, absolutely. I think we want to go this way. Go ahead. You want to go straight? No? You're good? Okay. I think it's been an interesting combination of looking for new voices, but also acknowledging the importance of having somebody experienced with those voices. So it seems clear to me that there's an appetite for new ideas, but also a comfort with making sure that we don't abandon some of the great work that we've already done, and that the vision that we put forward is one that Victoria supports. What's your first priority?
Housing.
We have to make sure that the beginning of the work that we've done, we build on right away. We're going to have some important partners at the province, I think, and that's important because we can't do it alone. So for us, that's job number one after we get the council together and help them learn a little bit about what their jobs actually are. Yeah, that's a great question. It looks like there will be 8 relatively new councillors. If Councillor Coleman, former Councillor Coleman, is elected, he has some experience. But certainly with 7 or 8 very, very new people, if ever there was a time when you wanted a good facilitator at the helm, it's now. And so I think that is probably one of the reasons why Victoria chose that combination of a new council members, but also an experienced chair, an experienced mayor. There is no doubt that there's going to be excitement at the table. There's going to be enthusiasm, and there's going to need to be somebody there who understands how the systems work, can provide a bit of mentorship, and also understands the need to make sure those systems work better for people. Balance, it's balance. A balance between exciting new things and being confident that the experience that's there is important too. Yep. To be perfectly candid, I haven't paid any attention to Councillor Andrew's platform. I've always run a campaign where it's been my job to try and share my vision and ask people to consider that. And so, candidly, I don't know, honestly. I don't believe he has called. Laura, has Stephen called? Has Stephen called to concede? No.
Marianne Alto, the mayor-elect of Victoria, we knew it was going to be a new mayor, and Marianne Alto, who has served as councillor in that city, will now assume the top spot. And she talked, Keith, about the rookie council that's going to be around the table there. I was just looking at some of these numbers, and it's not all finalized yet, but Ben Isett, the one incumbent who was running for re-election, appears to be quite far down the list.
He's in 12th. He topped the polls last time. That does surprise me. Good news for Marianne Alto, though. I just looked at she didn't run a slate and she didn't run in with the parties, but you can see here, so Susan Kim, Matt Dell, Krista Loughton, and Dave Thompson, and I think Jeremy Cardona were all on a flyer with Alto's name. So I think those are her candidates. So she's going to have a majority support on council as well. Stephen Hammond is a business sort of supported person. Steve Orchard, a former NDP MLA who did not get any Labour endorsements this time, failed to make the cut here. And Ben Isett way down there. That is surprising. Again, not all the polls are in yet, but 38% in. It's going to be tough to climb from 12th to 8th. But congratulations to Marianne Alto to be the mayor of my hometown.
And one of those councillors, Chris Coleman, if the numbers hold, has a lot of experience on council. Yeah. He just didn't run in the last term.
Coleman
so
has experience.
Someone there.
Yeah, he's sort of a centrist, so I think look for Marianne Alto and Coleman to basically forge an alliance here of leadership.
All right, we've got some more results to pass along. We're going to take a look at some of these communities south of the Fraser and White Rock. Megan Knight elected as mayor in White Rock with 38% of the vote, 2,011 votes.
Yeah, another incumbent.
Yep.
In Delta, George Harvey, easy victory for him with 76% of the vote.
And in Richmond, again, no surprise here, Malcolm Brodie, longtime mayor there. Look for him to play a key role in some of the regional district and mayor's council's organizations as well.
He's got a lot of experience for sure. Checking some of the cities in the Okanagan and Kelowna, that is a big upset for the incumbent Colin Bazarin, with Tom Dias elected with 62% of the vote.
And in Penticton, it looks like Julius Bloomfield, we are declaring Julius Bloomfield the mayor-elect of Penticton, beating, again, the incumbent, John Vasilaki.
And Vernon Victor coming.
Yeah, here's an incumbent who hung on, Keith.
Yes, but the number of mayors, I think we're up to 10 now or something, or a number of mayors who've been defeated. The incumbent, not a great day to be an incumbent.
And when we have some time, we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. We do want to get to CKNW's Janet Brown, though, in Surrey, because Janet is with Surrey's mayor-elect, Brenda Locke. Janet.
Thank you, Sophie. I am with Brenda Locke, the mayor-elect for the city of Surrey. Brenda, first of all, congratulations. But do you have a bit of a problem going forward now? 4 years ago, you were with Mayor Doug McCallum and you voted in favor of moving away from the RCMP to a civic police force. Now you are going from a civic police force back to the Surrey RCMP. Are we facing in the city of Surrey another policing saga with really essentially two different police forces?
You know, the RCMP are the police of jurisdiction in the city of Surrey. They will remain the police of jurisdiction in the city of Surrey moving forward. This is a very small task to move it forward because there hasn't been that many SPS members brought over yet. And the ones that are, we'll figure something out for them. We will not let them down.
We've heard many times from various people that the transition is too far along in order to turn back now. What do you say to that?
They're wrong. The transition has never really got off the ground. There is only 150 members on the ground right now. This is something that we have to stop. We cannot afford it in our city. Our residents can't afford it. We have to stop it for the good of the city.
So you're confident that it can be turned around and that the RCMP will be the policing jurisdiction in the city of Surrey?
Well, they are right now. I am absolutely confident. I've already talked with different ministers, with different members and the RCMP. We can do this, absolutely.
You've already talked to different cabinet ministers about this, turning it around, and have they said yes?
I've talked to the federal minister about it, yes, absolutely.
And what happens to those members who are already employed by the Surrey Police Service now?
You know, they can go back to their original jurisdiction if they choose to, or the RCMP can ladder them in and they have a shortened program. We can look at that. We will not let them down. We will have a place for them to go, for sure.
Will some people be losing their job, however?
Some will. The senior officers will be losing their jobs, but that's only a very small number that are inspectors and the chief.
Obviously, your victory is an endorsement of you, but is it also speaking volumes about what the residents in Surrey wanted?
You know, that is absolutely the case. We were crystal clear. We are running to keep the RCMP as the police of jurisdiction in the city of Surrey. The residents knew that. That's what they voted for. This just goes part and parcel with the referendum we've already done. So absolutely.
There you have it. Sophie, back to you in studio.
A lot of confidence that police saga, as you described it, Janet, can be unraveled. And congratulations again to Brenda Locke, the mayor-elect in Surrey, who has a big job ahead. There's no doubt about it. They are down the path to a new police service, but she feels pretty confident that can all be rolled back. And the flip-flop, Keith, from 2018 didn't hurt her at all.
No, and she sort of distanced herself pretty early on from 2018 and has been very aggressive in her take that that was then, this is now. We want the RCMP to remain. Interesting, she's using different numbers than Doug McCallum's using, both on costs and bodies, boots on the ground. I think the number she said there's only 120 so far. So she seems very confident. She's already talked to the federal minister. She didn't say she's talked to the province yet. Those talks presumably will come. But again, more stability coming Surrey's way. I called Doug McCallum when he was first elected the great disruptor, and that's exactly what he turned out to be. That's the style of politics. Now Brenda Locke's got able to work with a majority of her Surrey Connect party, who will now control council, at least they, as of the last vote count.
All right, let's bring in Richard Zussman. Sorry to surprise you there, Richard.
No, you didn't surprise me. I'm checking out some very interesting results in our neck of the woods in Langford, and it looks like Stu Young is in for a tight battle here. We don't have the numbers up quite yet, so that's what I was looking at my phone at. He is literally the only person that has ever been mayor of Langford. Yeah. So if he's in trouble in that community, it's a big story. But we'll get to that. I don't have the results. I don't have those results yet. I just saw something about the Langford results being exciting, so I was trying to find them, but I'm not as quick on my phone as I thought I would be.
He's running for, I think, what would it be?
His 7th term or 8th term or something like that?
Yeah. Crazy.
He's been around a long time. So we'll get to those eventually. But I do have actual results here in Vancouver. And this is what everybody is waiting to see. And Ken Sim is now out nearly 6,000 votes over Kennedy Stewart, with just 27 polls reporting. But this is a gigantic lead for Ken Sim. And I also want to show you what's going on in the council race, because that's key as well. And we keep getting more results in from the community. It starts getting closer and clearer. So ABC, that's the party Ken Sim is running for. ABC councillor, ABC councillor, ABC councillor, ABC councillor, ABC councillor. This is a big night. ABC councillor, ABC councillor. So if Ken Sim's the mayor, as we all expect, it is going to be majority rule on Vancouver City Council, and that means he can get through some of these big initiatives. Keith raised it earlier. It's going to be hard to find the 100 police officers, to find the 100 frontline nurses to work on mental health issues, to deal with public safety. But he now has the backing of his council to do it. 3 progressives will join him. It looks, we're still waiting for a lot of these results to come in, but these are all familiar faces: Adrian Carr, Christine Boyle, Pete Fry. So that is clearly still the story of the night. And Ken Sim, we're still not there quite yet, but this is a gigantic lead. And it just plays to the message we've been talking about all night. This is a change election. Incumbents are struggling across the province. People are frustrated, mad, and they are asking for change, and they are getting change in so many communities in British Columbia and potentially here in Vancouver as well.
I do want to jump in back to the Langford race, because I just looked at our globalnews.ca website, and Scott Goodmanson apparently has been elected.
It is incredible to me. If you go to Langford, Langford is one of the fast-growing communities in the entire province. Stu Young owns that town, and clearly people are sending this message, no matter where they are in British Columbia, we want to try something new. And if anyone in this province was going to survive a change election, I think a lot of people would have anticipated it was going to be Stu Young. It's not. He has lost tonight. It is quite the shocking result.
I'm slightly concerned because on the same page it says 0 out of 0 polls reporting.
So we'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see what's going on in Langford. But it seems like there could be change afoot there.
I think Stu Young was something, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, something like 83% last time. So Richard's right. If you had to pick one mayor who was going to survive a tsunami of change, it would be Stu Young. So we'll see if that actually holds. By my count, we're looking at 1, 2, 3. If Kennedy Stewart loses, and it appears that he's going to, we haven't called it yet, that will be 6 mayors in Metro Vancouver who have been defeated, kicked out of office. So again, change, we suggested at the very beginning of our coverage, will change be the buzzword tonight? Are the incumbents in trouble? And it appears when it comes to mayors, they're in trouble. And certainly in Vancouver Council, that ABC juggernaut is sweeping through it.
No doubt the panel has some thoughts on what we're seeing so far. Let's check in with Jazz Johal and the rest of them for their analysis of what we're seeing so far. Jazz?
Well, let's touch on that Janet Brown interview with Brenda Locke. I think it was incredibly dangerous, some of the comments that Brenda Locke made, specifically that she is saying that they'll get rid of 4 or 5 senior members of leadership of Surrey Police Service. The rest of those police officers that they've hired can magically either go back to their old jobs or potentially maybe join the RCMP, although I don't know how you just find 100 new positions just like that in a budget. Mary Polak, let me go to you. You've been at that government level. Is it just me? Walk me off the ledge. But that seemed like really dangerous stuff that she was saying there, because I don't think she's seen the books. The budget was supposed to be 19 million. Now it's 54 million for the transition. I don't think that number is remotely close to what the transition is actually going to cost. But then to say she's just going to get rid of all of it, it's just going to go away, and all you got to do is pay out about 4 or 5 senior managers, including Norm Lipinski, the chief. I just don't buy it. I mean, walk me off the ledge. Maybe I'm wrong here, but those are dangerous comments you just made.
I don't know if I can get you all the way back off the ledge. They were pretty bold statements. And of course, that politicians have to be very careful about making bold statements. Now, having said that, in fairness to her, she's not new at this. Brenda Locke is an experienced politician. She's been at the provincial level of government, and she has certainly been active on this file in the city of Surrey as she's been an incumbent on council for quite a long time. I mean, she was the earliest voice out there against McCallum and saying she was going to be running. So we don't know what she knows and doesn't know. And I guess now she has to put her money where her mouth is, and we'll see if she can deliver.
Those are the kind of comments that come back and they play for you a couple of months later, and you realize you put your foot in your mouth the night you won the election. Andrew Reimer, let me go to you, and let's talk a little bit about Vancouver. We're looking at Ken Sims' numbers. Richard Zussman was going through them as well. Early stages still, we've got more votes coming in. But if this holds, we're going to have a center-right government at the municipal level in Vancouver. We haven't had one since, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 2008 or 2005 with Sam Sullivan? What's this mean for the city, and what's it mean for the center-left?
Yeah, well, it was 2005 with Sam Sullivan. I guess what I would say to any government, I mean, Brenda's a good example, Brenda Locke tonight. You're you've got all this momentum from your campaign about pointing out what they did wrong and what you're going to do differently. And that government that you're speaking about in 2005, ultimately Sam Sullivan got deposed by his own party. The majority that was elected the year before that, or the election before that in 2002, they didn't even make it to their first council meeting before the caucus split up. So, I mean, you need to slow down, reach out to people both within your party and without your from without of your party, and talk to staff and just figure out how you're going to work together to actually deliver, not just on your campaign promises, but for all the people that you're now the government for, even though they might not have supported you. Because once you're in government, your job is to work for everybody.
Salem, we got about 30 seconds, but I do want to ask you, Mark Marison is leading Fred Harding from the NPA. Melissa DeGenova, an NPA council at this point, doesn't appear she's going to get elected. Is the NPA dead?
It really seems so after, I think, 4 years of controversies of all different kinds and stripes, and even changes within who their mayoral candidate is in this election. A number of incumbent councillors leaving the party. Those are pretty bad results for a party that's been around for a very long time. So it looks very bad for the NPA this year.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating numbers. Sophie, Chris, Keith, back to you. Mary kind of walked me off the ledge, but I just thought those comments were dangerous. I don't think she's looked at the books, and that's the kind of stuff you end up regretting. I've been there. I really just cannot believe she said that. Maybe it's just me.
We'll give you some time to collect your thoughts.
We are We have some breaking news. We are going to do it. We are declaring Ken Sim elected the new mayor of Vancouver. 53% of the vote to Kennedy Stewart. The next closest at 30%. That's 16,000 votes. Almost, what do we got? 7,000 more than Kennedy Stewart tonight. So Ken Sim is the new mayor of Vancouver.
And bringing, it looks like, pretty much all of his slate with him to City Council. Let's go straight to ABC headquarters, where Imad Agahi has been throughout the evening. I'm sure it is jubilation there, Imad.
Yeah, just a moment ago, this place erupted when the screens here showed what we are also confirming and calling as Ken Sim, the next mayor of Vancouver. The hugs, the drinks, they are everywhere. You look here, and the anticipation for Ken Sim to come down to that podium is now building. I am told that Ken Sim's campaign manager is waiting to get a call from Kennedy Stewart's campaign to see if there's a concession. That has not happened yet, and Kennedy Stewart has not conceded yet, and Ken Sim will not come down to that podium until that happens. So that's what we're waiting for before we see this mayor-elect of Vancouver take the podium and announce his victory.
All right, Imad, stand by. We will, of course, bring our viewers that as soon as it happens. But let's talk a little bit again with Keith and Richard about the makeup of council. And it looks like a sweep for ABC, Keith, on council. Yeah, it's a juggernaut. It's quite astounding that ABC is really dominating things. Again, we haven't seen a council like this dominated by one party in quite some time. Again, Sarah Kirby-Young, Lisa Dominato. I've known Lisa Dominato for a number of years. She used to work over here. Her and Sarah Kirby-Young are going to have a disproportionate amount of influence on this council. They have the most experience. So they're going to be actually telling Ken Sim how to proceed. Look for those two to really dominate more than anyone else. Mike Clausen's been around a long time. And Rebecca Bly is also a veteran of council and is re-elected at ABC. She'll also play a prominent role. Adrian Gar used to top the polls, no more. And Pete Fry right now is hanging on to the last council seat. It's interesting. The gap right now is 23 points between Ken Sim and Kennedy Stewart. NDP MLAs were telling me last past week they thought Ken Sim would win by 15 points. And this has exceeded even their somewhat gloomy prediction from their political spectrum point of view.
Keith has a bit of a short memory there. Vision Vancouver, just 2 elections, controlled council, and Gregor Robertson controlled City Hall. And we're now seeing that on the other end of the political spectrum. And when Gregor Robertson was in power with a Vision council, he plowed through that agenda. And if you were an opposition voice, you didn't have much say at all. And I expect that we will see something very similar with Ken Sim. These are councillors that he recruited. He has been working with these councillors. I want to show you the list again here, if I can, because these are all people he brought. Sarah Kirby-Young, Lisa Dominato, and Rebecca Bly over from the NPA as the NPA was imploding. Ken Sim ran for the NPA last time. You'll remember that. And then he went out and recruited Brian Montague, a well-known former police officer, the spokesperson for the VPD. Mike Clausen has run a number of times for council. He is known, and he got recruited. Lenny Zhao got recruited as well. And our former colleague at Global, Peter Meisner, also recruited, all by Ken Sim. They will work with him, and this will be very similar to what we saw when Gregor Robertson and Vision was in charge. It's something that Vancouverites got frustrated with, though, over time, was this singular control at council. We'll see if Ken Sim manages that situation a little bit differently than Gregor Robertson. And now he's got to go to meet with the Premier, likely eventually David Eby, a guy who endorsed his opponent. I know Keith and I will be waiting by the door. We will be waiting by the Premier's door that day to see what the looks are on their faces as they go in and out, because that's going to be one of the most highly anticipated meetings politically, because Vancouver's got a lot on the agenda. They need support from the province. And all politicians know the voter is always right.
I can see you guys licking your chops and rubbing your hands together. And where does that leave, you know, the Greens, Adrian Carr, Pete Fry, and One City's Christine Boyle on this council?
The NDP owns Vancouver provincially, and now they're going to be facing a centre-right juggernaut of City Hall for the next 4 years. So it's going to be interesting to see the relationship evolve and develop between not only Ken Sim, but the council itself and cabinet ministers represented in Vancouver in the NDP government. It's quite fascinating to watch. I mean, this is a historic night to see Surrey and Vancouver and so many other mayors not only not run, but also being kicked out of office by the voters.
And really quickly here, we met Karim Alam earlier speaking with Ahmad Agahi. He is the guy that ran Kevin Falcon's campaign to become the leader of the BC Liberals. So he is a seasoned political campaigner, but he also comes from that BC Liberal world. So it's going to be really interesting to see where Ken Sim pivots as we sort of, look towards those meetings in Victoria.
And is he successful after making the promises he has? It's pretty clear that he was voted in by an electorate that was upset with the way they saw things going in Vancouver. A lot of people upset about crime and chaos in the downtown core, and a promise from him to hire some more police officers. Is he going to be one and done, or will he get enough done in the next 4 years to make people feel like that vote was well spent? We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. Well, just talking about voters who are fed up with the status quo. Same thing happening in Langley City, where our Travis Prasad is, with Langley City's mayor-elect, and not a newcomer. He served on council, but the mayor-elect Nathan Pahal. Travis.
Yeah, Sophie, that's right. Val Vandenbroek is out. Nathan Pahal is in, and we are at Nathan's headquarters for tonight. You know, it was an early decision, so a lot of people, a lot of his supporters have already gone home, but Nathan has been kind enough to stick around and chat with us, and a few of his supporters are still here. Nathan, first off, just how did this campaign go, and is this the result you expected?
Yeah, this was a really positive campaign. We had a lot of supporters and volunteers on the door, so it's really the help of the community that led to this result.
Now that you're in, what's priority number one for you?
Well, priority number one, of course, is SkyTrain. That's coming to town. We have 2 stations in our community that we need to deal with. Besides that, I heard clear that community safety is the top issue for Langley City, followed closely by affordable housing and addressing homelessness. So I look forward to working with our new council. We have a mix of incumbents and new faces, about 50-50, so I think that's really healthy, and I'm really excited to work with everybody on council.
You talk about working with council. Is there a shift in council itself that you would like to see, a culture shift?
Yeah, what I really want to see is that everybody represents a different segment of our community. I have to trust the voters. Of course, I trust the voters. And I want to make sure that everybody who's elected could see their key campaigns, promises reflected in the strategic priorities for our community. So my goal as mayor is to work with everybody on council, make sure that these policies can be put forward and actually executed on.
Nathan, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sticking around with us. So yeah, in Langley City, it's a fairly small region. There's about 20,000, just over 20,000 eligible voters. Voter turnout, it looks like, was 18%, but the ones who did show up and vote, they decided they wanted change. Back to you.
18%, boy.
That is pathetic. Let's just say it. That's pathetic. Thank you, Travis. But yes, Nathan Pahal is the beneficiary of those votes.
Yeah, and will be interesting to see what the voter turnout was in places like Vancouver and in Surrey and in Victoria. And a lot of these places, Keith, where we've seen big change. I've been trying to keep a list of the incumbents who have lost tonight, the incumbent mayors who have lost tonight. And I'm probably not doing a very good job but it's a long list.
6 mayors in 6 metros in Metro Vancouver, also the mayor of Kelowna, mayor of Kamloops. So it's a lot of change out there. And the councillors, the number of incumbent councillors lost their seats as well, particularly in Vancouver and Surrey. Here's where we're going to the North Shore. Different story. The mayors are getting re-elected. Linda Buchanan elected easily in North Vancouver City.
North Vancouver District, Mike Little, the incumbent there. Pretty tight race, though, against Matthew Bond there. Mike Little got 51% of the vote. Only about 300 votes separating him and Matthew Bond.
Yeah, that is tight. And in West Van, there's an incumbent mayor losing her bid for another term in office. Mark Sager defeating Marianne Booth. He is a former mayor of West Vancouver, and he also was in a very tight race with Booth in 2018. I think he lost by just a handful, just under 24 votes. So this time around, handily defeating Marianne Booth.
All right, I know where we can get the correct answer about how many incumbents lost. Let's check in with Richard Zussman, who's at our magical touchscreen right now. What have you got, Richard?
Yeah, so
what's the tally?
So we know some incumbents have lost all over the province that I'm not going to show you, in Langford, in Penticton. But let's look at the ones in Metro Vancouver and some of the bigger communities. And obviously the conversation starts right here, where incumbent Kennedy Stewart has lost to Ken Sim. Let's go down here to White Rock. This one is seen as a big surprise. Incumbent Darrell Walker has lost to Megan Knight by about 200 votes. So Megan Knight will be the next mayor of White Rock. Obviously, incumbent Doug McCallum has lost to Brenda Locke here by nearly 2,000 votes. We jump up here to Langley City. That's where we just saw our colleague, and Nathan Pahal has defeated Val Vandenbroek by 1,200 votes. So there's another incumbent that's lost. And if we go to one of the biggest cities in the province, in Kelowna, we have an incumbent here in Colin Bazran who has lost to Tom Dias. These are just some of the incumbents across the province who have lost today. There is this clear message of change coming from the electorate as we start seeing these incumbents fall off in communities across British Columbia. It's quite shocking how this has unfolded so quickly, and these all these people have lost their jobs as we sort of sift through what this is going to look for the region.
Yeah, Vancouver was slow getting out of the blocks because of some problems at some of those polling stations. But boy, when we first started getting those results, it was
resounding.
a resounding endorsement of Ken Sim and his ABC party.
Pardon me. I'm good. But let's check in with Sarah McDonald at Kennedy Stewart's headquarters tonight. I imagine a pretty solemn mood there tonight, Sarah.
It's pretty somber. Speaking of change, as we know, Vancouverites have spoken, and they have spoken decisively, delivering a searing rebuke to Kennedy Stewart and his progressive policies and the Forward Together party tonight. Ken Sim, of course, is now the next mayor of Vancouver. A big night for him, a big night for his ABC party. He's also clinched his entire slate of councillors, essentially, 7 of them on city council. That gives him a firm majority, as you have been speaking about earlier in the show. So an historic night for Sim, who is also the first person of color to be the mayor of Vancouver. A big letdown for Kennedy Stewart and his party here tonight. No doubt some major soul searching will be happening in the days and weeks to come for Stewart and his team. The mood here at the party headquarters is pretty somber. They definitely came here tonight hoping for a party that is obviously not going to be happening. Instead, they were handed a major loss and a clear message from voters. No Forward Together candidates. 0 were successful tonight in this civic election. We do expect to hear from Kennedy Stewart for a concession speech at some point. We're unsure when. We'll bring that to you, of course, if and when it happens, guys.
And until we get that, we're likely not going to hear from Ken Sim, who is the mayor-elect now in Vancouver. So thank you for that, Sarah.
What a change from 2018, Keith, when we were up until 1 or 1:30 on the air, and those two were battling it out, yeah. Ken Sim and Kennedy Stewart, and now it's 10:15, and all that's left for them is the speeches.
This is not a narrow win for Sim. This is a crushing defeat for Kennedy Stewart. I really think he's paying the price for really being out of touch, I think, with voters through the pandemic, when it was all about Vancouver and it was all about demanding others' help, rather than what a lot of other people's minds were around was help each other, and realize we're in a whole different frame of mind in the pandemic. We've never gone through anything like this before. And I think Kennedy Stewart's messaging was a turnoff to people, that it was all about helping Vancouver, as if they were the only city that was suffering. And I think that was a turnoff to Vancouver voters as well, because I think that wasn't what people were looking for. That is a significant victory for Ken Sim and a crushing defeat for Kennedy Stewart, and a pretty bad news for Colleen Hardwick and Mark Marison as well. Those are very low numbers. I think Colleen Hardwick was hoping to be much closer to Kennedy Stewart. Certainly a number of MLAs thought the gap there would be narrower, but no, the gap between Ken Sim and Kennedy Stewart tells the story.
Well, and just to put an exclamation point on it too, it's not just winning the mayor chair handily.
Yeah, Vancouver Council and the park board, the only park board in the province, and those are ABC candidates all across the board there. The top 6 going to park board, and as we talked about before, initially Ken Sim had talked about abolishing the park board, but
he didn't. He walked those comments back about 3 weeks ago. He sort of hedged away from that, but he didn't rule it out down the road. So I still don't think the future of the Vancouver Park Board is guaranteed to remain intact in the way it's currently structured. Sim, I think, still is indicating he'd like to do something with that, and now he's got a mandate to do stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see what type of projects he wants to embark upon, because he's controlling the City Council and the Park Board.
Be interesting to see what happens with the separated bike lanes in Stanley Park with an ABC-dominated park.
That's right.
That's another can of worms.
We'll see. I know a friend of mine who is deeply connected to hub cycling was not happy to think about a Ken Sim victory. Here is Kennedy Stewart now with what we assume is going to be his.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for coming here tonight. Before we begin, of course, I want to acknowledge we're on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and I'm just so proud of how we've moved further toward becoming a true city of reconciliation, and I want to thank Chief Wayne Sparrow for coming earlier this evening to greet and acknowledge us here. So let's hear it for Wayne for coming in tonight. So I just got off the phone with Ken Sim and congratulating him on his victory, which is a solid one, that's for sure. And just wished him luck in guiding the city through what I think will be 4 very difficult years. And because these last 4 years have been pretty tough. We've accomplished a lot, but I do think we got the city through pretty hard times. So this is not the result we wanted, of course, but it is the result that the voters have given us, and we have to respect it. So I have to say, though, it has been the honor of my life to serve as the mayor of Vancouver. It's been deeply, deeply rewarding. And I feel like we've made a lot of progress on a lot of issues that I think that when we were elected in 2018 were really important to us. So, for example, the progress we've made on housing and other key issues. And I think we've really turned the tide on the housing crisis we have in the city. We've doubled the number of homes that are being approved. We've shifted from building primarily condos for investors to building rental and social housing that working folks need. Yeah. And last year alone, we opened 1,600 units of social housing. Yeah, securing over $1 billion from the federal and provincial governments, and that is going to make a lifetime of difference for many, many people. And I think that's probably the thing that really will mark this last 4 years. On the opioid crisis, we became the first major city in Canada to decriminalize drugs and deliver safe supply and save lives. We passed Christine Boyle's Climate Emergency Action Plan, which will reduce Vancouver's carbon pollution by 50% by 2030, and we supported the legal fight to sue Big Oil. And we got us through the COVID-19 pandemic with some of the lowest case counts in North America, and a shout out to Dr. Penny Ballum and Dr. Bonnie Henry and Dr. Patricia Daly for all their work through the pandemic. And we're having one of the earliest and strongest economic recoveries, which I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish, and I'm actually sad to be giving up the mayor's chair, although, administering points of order and a million amendments every meeting I'm not going to miss that too much. I really want to thank all the candidates that have stood. There's Jeanette Ash. Yes, thanks, Jeanette. Hillary Brown. Hillary. Where am I looking at? I saw Russell. Where's Russell? There's Russell Wong. Where is Dulcie? Where's Dulcie? Hey, Dulcie. Tessica Tessica Trong. Sorry, Tessica. And Alvin Singh. Hey, Alvin. Awesome. So, what a fantastic team of candidates just working their guts out. And I know many of you were there right beside them. And just, listening to folks and really providing, I think, the progressive leadership that's going to be needed over the next 4 years. But thank you so much for the candidates for all their work. It's a tough slog, but really proud to be with you all the way through. Let's thank all the volunteers. Everybody that came out. Yeah, it's fantastic to have volunteers out, and staff. Let's have everyone put up your hand if you worked as paid staff in this campaign. Awesome. Let's hear it for Neil Moncton that ran this campaign. Neil Moncton. Yeah, I'm not going to go through everybody, but Neil has just been, we've been together doing this work since 1996. And, that first election we ran with Cope, we lost, but we've won a bunch, and we'll keep doing this. He's one of the best in the business, and I really want to thank Neil for everything he's done. Lots and lots and lots of endorsers. Two I want to call out, particularly Jagmeet Singh and David Eby. Thank you so much for all your support. And I really have to thank Mike Harcourt. Before I was elected in 2018, he mentored me all the way through this term. He's been tremendous, and it's just been such a great honor to get to know him more and to try to emulate some of the amazing work he did here in the city. So thank you, Mike Harcourt. Want to thank my family who aren't here except my brother, of course, Evan. Where's Evan? Evan, the bad signster. Getting all the punk rockers out. Thank you, Evan. So this campaign, I'm also really extremely proud about. I remember Jack Layton. My first election was in 2004 with Jack Layton, and I remember him telling us directly, no opposition without proposition. And we made this whole campaign about proposing something important for the city. Important moves on housing, on public safety, on reducing the death by poison drugs, mental health, climate change, and recovering from the pandemic. We really had, I think, a platform that was important, and I hope that much of it is picked up by those who will be running the city next. I think that's it for me. I mean, I'm just really proud of the work everybody's done. I really think. Thank you. And yes. Thank you. And I'll just be talking to each and every one of you for, sorry. Why doesn't the team come up? Come on up, team. While we're waiting for everybody to come up, here's Libby Davies, everybody. Look, it's Libby Davies. Libby Davies. It's been just a rock behind us this whole time.
This is kind of an awkward moment at the end there, but you know what? He's upbeat. He thanked everybody in his team, calling them up there, saying it was the honor of his life to serve as mayor. And yes, acknowledging that it has been a tough 4 years to govern in Vancouver.
For sure. Who could have seen a pandemic coming in the middle of your first term as mayor, first and only term as mayor, as it turns out. Let's take a look at Vancouver Council and the results there. And, we were been talking about a bit of a dysfunctional council in Vancouver, many places, but also in Vancouver. But this is what it looks like now, and it's Ken Sims' team, Ken Sims' slate. Sarah Kirby-Young, the incumbent, topping the polls for council, but all of her ABC colleagues looks like making the cut as well. And no, we just saw that one. I think if we can go to the next board, I want to see who. There we go. Adrian Carr and Pete Fry from the Green Party looking like they might eke in, and Christine Boyle from One City as well. But, Melissa DiGenova, who has been around for a while and, is a fairly well-known name, not making it onto that list.
Yeah, an NPA councillor. It's kind of the theme of the night, isn't it? Where there is just dramatic change.
The NPA is once historic party, the NPA, the dominant political party in civic politics for decades, ironically called the Nonpartisan Association, when it was a fairly center-right organization, is disintegrated. Ken Sim was able to recruit, as Richard pointed out a while ago, sitting NPA councillors to his party. They're now ABC councillors. I wonder if the NPA is going to exist at all come the next election, and whether it's just going to fade away and ABC is just now going to be the new dominant centre-right party in Vancouver.
Well, they lost their candidate halfway through the campaign, so that probably didn't help them. Their mayoral candidate halfway through the campaign before Fred Harding started.
And now they lost Melissa DiGenova as incumbent on council. So this is very much a really decisive historic win by a centre-right party in Vancouver. I have to tell you, though, just getting texts from NDP cabinet ministers telling me that the NDP affiliated candidates still did very well in Burnaby, New Westminster, and Langley. Also just got a note from a fellow councillor I know in Cranbrook telling me that the mayor there has been defeated. And also the mayor in Saanich, Fred Haynes, is running a very tight race right now with Dean Murdoch, a young councillor who has been leading all night there. So potentially another mayor going down on the island. We haven't declared that one yet, but another one in Cranbrook as well. So we could be hitting a dozen or so by the end of the night.
The incumbents are outcumbents tonight. All right, let's check in with the panel that I know has a lot to say about this clean sweep by Ken Sim in the mayor's chair, on the council, and on the park board as well. Jazz?
Yeah, I think we should take a moment to acknowledge that with Mr. Sim's election, we have in Vancouver elected our first mayor of Asian heritage, and it is a historical moment as well to thank the first Asian community, the Chinese community that arrived here in this country, and today we have a mayor of Asian heritage, and I think that is a tremendous moment in our history, and certainly for the Chinese community as well. But one of the things I do want to touch on, let me talk to you, Andrea, on this one. A majority, a strong majority. You always want a majority going into any election, but the expectation now is significant. Give me your thoughts in regards to how you manage expectations when you have a strong majority like this.
Yeah, well, a strong majority and after a dysfunctional council, right? So it's sort of like a double whammy. And I mean, Ken ran a great campaign, but you don't really win elections. Other people lose them, right? So, I mean, he still did not gain a majority support in Vancouver. Voter turnout's low. So how many people really support your policies is a whole other thing. So it's really about reaching out beyond your base and figuring out how you're going to bring people into City Hall who might feel alienated by it. I will say Keith has short memories. The center-right dominated with these kind of majorities in City Hall in Vancouver for decades before Vision Vancouver. And it really wasn't until the last 14 years that we saw those progressive governments. So the progressive split again, which is something they've historically been very good at doing, and the center-right got in. So be interesting to see how he governs. And the last thing I'll say, in the election, he couldn't even name the housing ministers in Victoria or Ottawa, and actually said it didn't matter to know those. So I'm hoping that it's something that he sees as important, because certainly for Vancouverites, housing is by far the =1 issue, and you need to talk to other levels of government to deliver on that.
Now, Salem, your thoughts on this? I know crime has played a big role in this, but we've talked about, we have issues of it on the Broadway plan. Your community is involved with the Seanock development, the Heatherlands, the Jericho lands, but significant other issues around transportation, working as a region. Talk to me a little bit about one or two issues you think Mr. Sim and his party need to be focusing on moving forward.
Well, the rising costs for people and the affordability issues, I think, stretches across lots of political spectrums, and that's going to be a huge issue in the coming years, especially with inflation. I think the housing issue is going to continue to be a pressing issue, and it'll be interesting to see how an ABC government at Vancouver City Hall manages that. A lot of their platform really focused on densifying on Ontarios and transit corridors, but leaving single detached neighborhoods intact for the most part. But also trying to find that balance of governing as a bit of a center-right center where new ideas are trying to appeal to not just, to centrist voters as well. So I think that they're going to have a lot of promises to implement. They are going to have to find partners and different levels of government. And it'll be an interesting 4 years for them to figure out how they're going to govern.
Thank you, Mary. I'll get back to you a little while. It looks like Ken Sim is entering the hall. Lots of supporters around there. I'll pass it back to Sophie and Chris.
I imagine there's a lot of Instagram Live going on with all those phones.
Sure looks like it. Thanks very much, Jess.
All right, there he is, Ken Sim, the mayor-elect of Vancouver, walking into the room, heading to the podium to give his victory speech.
Many of his councillors are already up on stage, I think, awaiting him, and boy, did they do well, too. Sarah Kirby-Young, who's been a councillor and was recruited by Ken to run for the ABC party. She's in. Lisa Dominato. Brian Montague, former police officer. We clipped him on many occasions. He was a spokesperson for the force for many years. Mike Klassen. Peter Meisner, our former colleague, former journalist. And a downtown resident who really has been an advocate for public safety and some of those things that Ken Sim really tried to hit on in this campaign. Lenny Zhao as well, Rebecca Bly, all of those are ABC Vancouver councillors who will be heading to City Hall.
And also going to the park board as well. I'm just taking a look at some of these school board results. It looks like they're dominating on Vancouver School Board as well. So a big night for this new party, ABC, A Better City.
Kareem Allam was the campaign manager that we spoke to, or Ahmad spoke to a little bit earlier on at Ken Sim headquarters, and really the architect of a campaign that was organized. And he talked about the importance of getting out and getting to the doors and knocking on doors and talking to people face to face. That obviously resonated as Ken hugs those council members who worked along with him.
Mike, guys, when I count there's only about 45,000 votes there, so turnout's still very low. But a win is a win. I'm sure he'll take it. And he's got 4 years now to implement his platform.
And Keith, again, in a city as multicultural as Vancouver, the first time this city will have a person of color.
Yes, another historic first.
There's a lot of joy up on that stage right now, that's for sure. And heavy lifting. He's going to throw his back out if he keeps that up.
Different than 4 years ago.
Yeah, no kidding.
Very successful entrepreneur. Obviously, he started Nurse Next Door many years ago.
Rosemary rock salt bagels.
Great bagels.
Great bagels.
And here he is. Ken Sim, mayor-elect for Vancouver.
ABC, 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 ABC.
Thank you.
And really blowing him out of the water this time, along with his party.
Along with his party,
Thank you so much. Like, I literally want to hug every single person in this room. So, before we get started, I just want to mention Mayor Stewart just called and was very gracious in passing over the keys, and, very appreciative of him and his kind words. So. 4.5 years. The longest job interview ever. So now, before we start, I do want to acknowledge that we are hosting tonight's event on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and I thank them for their generosity and their hospitality. Now, you can't lose if you never give up. To all of the people in this room who were with me 4 years ago, Sarah, Rebecca, Lisa, and to all of you, thank you for not giving up on the promise that together we can make Vancouver a better city.
Yes! 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 Together!
Yeah. Now that so now the path to get here was incredibly long. 135 years after the first Chinese head tax was paid just for the right to come here and work on building a railway, Vancouver has elected its first Chinese Canadian mayor. So now, the history of this moment isn't lost on me, but the honor really goes to those whose shoulders I stand on. Douglas Jung, Tung Chan, I don't know if Tung's here. Tung, go Tung! Yeah. But also Raymond Louis, Carrie Jang, David Lam, B.C. Lee, the late B.C. Lee, he was such a great guy. Art Lee, Sophia Leung, thank you for paving the way for tonight. Now, the honor also belongs to every single person in this room who shares the vision that we can build a more inclusive Vancouver for all of us. A Vancouver where we celebrate our diverse lived experiences and we believe that they make us stronger. Now, for us, that shared vision only came together very recently. 500 days ago, ABC Vancouver was just an idea. Now, while being BC's newest political party, tonight we are now the largest municipal party in our great province. Yeah. ABC, 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 ABC. You know, the speech is going to take 47 minutes at this rate, so you might as well hit the bar right now. We're going to have to settle in here for a while. But look, ABC Vancouver was born out of a desire for change, a desire to do politics differently. It was born on the promise that decisions in government should not be made on the advice of polls, lobbyists, activists, or whatever's trending on Twitter. But instead, it should be made on the advice of parents and educators and scientists and healthcare providers and what's happening in community town halls and coffee shops and the occasional local pub. Oh, no, seriously, some of the greatest ideas come out of a pub. And so the leadership that our city has gotten from Sarah, Rebecca, and Lisa set the stage. It was their decision to rejoin me 3.5 years after we last ran that set the spark. Yeah. Woo! We're literally at an hour now. Okay, but look, needless to say, every moment since that day, everything's gotten better and better. Look, you can't lose if you never give up. Because not long after they decided to join, Peter Meisner joined the movement. Yeah. And then, yeah, Peter. Yeah, he's got good-looking eyes. Like, let me tell you, they're pretty beautiful, actually. So, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. And then my old high school buddy, and actually elementary school buddy, Brian Montague, joined the campaign. And then Lenny, Joe, and Mike Klassen rounded the team. Yeah. He has his own fan club too. So after that, I lost the most weight. Yeah. 20 pounds. He lost 20 pounds, everyone. So if you guys want to lose weight, come door knocking with us in 2026. So after we rounded out the team, Brennan and Laura and Angela and Mary Claire, Scott, Jazz, Alfred, Preeti, Josh, and Victoria joined the team. Now, I do want to acknowledge Jazz can't be here today. He's dealing with a personal emergency, but he's here in spirit. He would love to be on the stage here. Now, and so since June 1st until this morning, without missing a beat, rain or shine, and I know the weather's been great recently, but I tell you, it absolutely sucked in June and July. Our team knocked on 73,458 doors and made over 250,000 phone calls. So when people ask us how ABC came out of nowhere, the answer is simple. We just worked really, really hard. And we went into people's homes. And we asked them for their vote with the promise that we would do things better. Like I said, you can't lose if you never give up. So now we heard loud and clear that from people that they wanted change. And change in Vancouver is here. On day one, we are going to requisition for 100 new police officers and 100 new mental health nurses. We are going to stop the road tax. Yeah. We're going to plant the first of 100,000 new trees, and we're. Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Yeah, we got some tree lovers here. That's great. And parking. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. You know what? We got a lot of work on. Like I got like pages of this stuff here. And we will work to make Vancouver the most accessible city in the world. We're going to start the work day one to reduce permit times on building new homes and starting new businesses. We are going to expand the responsible consumption of alcohol in our parks. And we're going to bring back honors classes and the school liaison officer program. And we're going to bring a renewed lens, a compassionate lens, one that's measured by outcomes in the communities that need it the most. Now, we're going to do these things and a lot of other things, and we're going to do them together. But I do want to stress, this journey is going to be really hard. There will be false starts. We will make mistakes, but we can't lose if we never give up. So now, this morning in Vancouver, we went to the polls as ABC voters, One City voters, COPE, NPA, Greens, Teams, Forward Vancouver voters. But at 8:01, we began watching the results as Vancouverites. We all love our city. And it's this fact that drives me to do what I do. I do believe that our diversity of thoughts and lived experiences makes us stronger. I believe that we can unite our city again. I believe that we can bring our best ideas to the table no matter where they come from. And I believe that we can all work together to reclaim our title of best city in the world. Now, I do want to congratulate everyone who was elected tonight, but not just in Vancouver, but across the region. Look, we are all neighbors and partners in this journey together, and we all look forward to working with our neighbors. So to Christine Boyle, Jean Swanson, Pete Fry, Adrian Carr, and Mike Weeb, we just, we look so forward to working with you as partners on this journey, regardless if you were elected or not. To Mark Marison, you ran a very spirited campaign. I hope you stay engaged in our city. To Colleen, no, seriously, look, anyone who runs for political office, I have a lot of respect for, no matter what your political affiliations are. So, on that note, to Colleen Hardwick, we ran once together, we ran against each other once. Colleen, if you decide to do this again, I hope we get to work together. And to Kennedy Stewart, you were at the helm of our city during one of its darkest times. The pressure of guiding our city during a global pandemic is impossible to measure. And on behalf of myself, ABC Vancouver, and everyone in Vancouver, we are grateful for your service. Now, to all the candidates who decided to put their lives on hold for public service and didn't get elected tonight, I have one simple message for you. Don't give up on your ambitions to make Vancouver a better place. You can't lose if you never give up. I also want to thank our amazing teams of volunteers and supporters and everyone on the campaign team and our board of directors and every single person that ran for council, park, and school board and all of their families. Whether you hosted a get-together in your living room or you pounded the pavement, rain or shine, or you picked up the phone or you delivered a lawn sign or you donated to the cause, you did all the big and small things that made this victory possible. You made your voice heard, you made a difference, you are the heart and soul of ABC Vancouver, and you are living proof that this movement is bigger than any one person. So I don't know if we're going to have an intermission here before we have the second part of our... So I'm going to get to some family thank yous now. I do want to thank my family and my in-laws for their amazing support. I know it wasn't easy for any of you to have my life under a microscope. Oh, there's Tina. I'll thank you in a second. But this is back on the family and in-laws. I just want to say I do truly love most of you. Yeah, I'm going to pay for that joke for a while, but yeah. And so to Tina, thank you for being a great mother to our kids and an amazing partner during our journey together. It's been one hell of a ride so far, and I look forward to the next 30 to 50 to 70, 90, 100 years, and I love you, so thank you. All right, keep it clean. Let's keep it clean here. And finally, I would really like to thank my mom and my dad. So my parents, they had a comfortable life in Hong Kong. They had their network of family and friends, and they had careers. And then in 1967, they had this crazy idea to, give that all up and come to Vancouver with $3,200 in their pants and 3 kids. And they were looking for a better life, not for them, but for their kids. And then when they were here, they decided to have 2 more kids, including myself. Look, my parents sacrificed a lot so their kids could have a place to live, an education and a better life. And when they came here, they struggled. They struggled through racism. They struggled financially. And later on in life, they struggled through some serious health issues and challenges. But you know what? They never gave up. And they knew that you can't lose if you never give up. And so to my mom and my dad, who are no longer with us, I miss you. I love you. And because of your sacrifices and how you raised your family, today I'm standing on this stage as the next mayor of Vancouver. So everyone, look, let's enjoy tonight, because tomorrow the next chapter in our journey begins. Thank you and good night.
Mayor-elect Ken Sim, you can't lose if you never give up, a line he repeated a few times during that speech, and he is proof of it. The child of immigrants who came here when, before he was born. And he acknowledged the enormity of the moment, becoming the first Vancouver mayor of Chinese-Canadian descent.
I think that clip will be played over and over again on various newscasts, because that is a historical first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, on a personal note, I felt it.
Yeah.
I definitely felt that. So, Ken Sim, mayor-elect, with sweeping victory by the ABC slate on council, on school board, on park board, and quite a speech from Sim, thanking his opponents, thanking the outgoing councillors. I don't think we've sewn up the final few spots on council yet, but, offering olive branches around.
He hit all the points, hit all his marks, even little things like responsible drinking on beaches, putting police back in schools and such. No, there's going to be some big changes, but there's going to be some little changes too. This is a very massive mandate he secured here.
And I feel like he was trying to temper some expectations a little bit as well. Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, and really that focus, like you said, Sophie, there's a lot to accomplish here. And the big goal is that everyone who voted, they are all Vancouverites. And it is now time to work together to make Vancouver a world-class city. If you don't believe it is anymore, that this is something he's going to focus on. And I've crunched those numbers. We've talked about it a lot. There are 11 communities in Metro Vancouver where there are going to be new mayors. Vancouver, Surrey, White Rock, Langley City, Maple Ridge, West Vancouver, all had incumbents lose. New West, Port Moody, Pitt Meadows, Langley, Township. If you're keeping track, that's actually 10. So you got me on my math. If you caught me, I wrote White Rock down twice on my list. But I also want to show you one place where there's a really interesting race still unfolding, and that is in Saanich. And this one is still very much active here. 27 of 30 polls reporting Dean Murdoch is beating the incumbent Fred Haynes by fewer than 200 votes. So this is still not decided. It once again could be an incumbent losing in one of the province's biggest cities. And we are going to continue to watch this one because it is not done yet in Saanich. With so many incumbents losing, it would not be a surprise if we add Saanich to that list as well tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got some drama perhaps unfolding, I think, in Surrey. Let's head there now, where our Kamal Karmali has been with the Doug McCallum campaign. I believe that's who you're with tonight, Kamal. I'm sort of losing track late in the evening, but some breaking news, some developing news.
Absolutely, and we're taking it second by second. So what happened is Doug McCallum's campaign manager came out and said Doug McCallum is no longer conceding. He had a concession speech just about an hour ago, but he's no longer conceding because there's still one polling station left with about 500 votes in difference between Locke and McCallum. So they were waiting for that one polling station to come in with its results. As you were throwing to me, I'm just looking at the results right now. The last polling station, 129 out of 130 were counted. Now all 130 have been counted, and there's just over a 900 vote difference between McCallum and Locke. So it looks like all the results are in. Initially, McCallum conceded about an hour ago. Campaign manager came out and said, nope, he's not conceding. Now, as I'm looking at my phone, I'm seeing all the results are in. we will be expecting once again McCallum to concede. It was a very quick shift in mood here. People were leaving, the food was taken down, people were clearing, and then all of a sudden there was a huge cheer. A lot of people started dancing and singing. There was a lot of excitement that McCallum could come back. Now, once again, as you were throwing to me, the mood has gone back down. So just a roller coaster ride of emotions here as the results come in, and they are margin thin, Chris and Sophie.
What was just read those numbers for us again, Kamal, if you can, because we're still...
Sure.
Oh, now we have them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So 130 out of 130 polling stations have come in, and we're seeing 33,311 for Surrey Connect and Brenda Locke, and 32,338 for Safe Surrey Coalition, Doug McCallum. Before that last poll was counted, though, there was just about a 500 vote difference. So as you can hear, they're doing a mic check right now. They're going to announce right here that the last poll has been counted. I don't know if we have time to stick with it.
I want to thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.
But a much more somber tone here.
Listen in. We have 2 elected councillors, Councillor Nagra, Councillor Alford, were both re-elected.
So those are the 2 councillors that got re-elected, but Safe Surrey Coalition had 4 council seats prior to this.
Unfortunately, the rest of our team did not get elected, but we'll be back 4 years later to fight the battle on. Thank you for everybody. All the best tonight. Drive home safely. Be safe. If you have a drink, you guys need a ride, please let us know.
All right, there we go. Kamal, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously Brenda Locke, mayor-elect. We declared that earlier, and even though there was some question there, and it almost seemed like Doug McCallum was going to pull back, the final results are in, and it seems like a lock that Brenda Locke is the mayor-elect in Surrey.
It's going to be interesting. You just heard Richard, that race in Saanich, that's the closest race in terms of undetermined outcome right now for the mayorship there. Fred Haynes, the incumbent, and I don't know if Richard's got an update, but less than 200 votes. I think only 3 polls were left. So 3 polls can change a 200 vote difference for sure. Again, now those numbers haven't changed. Dean Murdoch is no stranger in Saanich. He had been a young councillor elected before. Fred Haynes has made some unpopular decisions there. Has had some controversy. Murdoch, I'm told, I've been texting with some NDP cabinet ministers all night. They said at one point tonight he was having a 9 to 10 point lead over Fred Haynes. That's shrunk now to just basically neck and neck, 200 votes. And remember what I said off the top, depending on some of these big areas, and Saanich is a big area, parts of the Saanich vote radically different than other parts of Saanich. So it determines where those 3 polls are that will determine the outcome of this race.
We'll keep an eye on that one for the rest of the night. We've still got another half an hour to go here. Slightly more than that.
Richard, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I know we have a lot of friends in Prince George watching. We haven't spoken about them in a while. Simon Yu is the new mayor of Prince George, beating Terry McConaughey, replacing Lynn Hall. So that's a really interesting race or outcome in Prince George as well. And clearly we're going to keep going back and back to that Saanich result tonight because we're still watching. And I was in Saanich earlier today, and the sense I was getting from people there was this is going to be close, and that's exactly what's unfolding here.
Definitely is. Well, we are still keeping an eye on those results. Lots of change happening in this election. I need to go over the numbers again of how many incumbents have lost, how many new mayors we have. But a couple of things we do know. Brenda Locke, as you said, has a lock in Surrey. And in Vancouver, it's Ken Sim and ABC.
Clean sweep, park board, city council, you name it. We're back after this.
This is a Global News special presentation.
Good evening to our viewers on Global BC and Global Okanagan. Lots of change happening on Decision 2022, civic election races across this province. And the next 4 years will look quite different in some communities than the last 4 years did.
No doubt. A lot of incumbents got blown out. A lot of municipalities are going to have new mayors, including the 2 big races we've been watching tonight, of course, in Vancouver, where Ken Sim has obliterated Mayor Kennedy Stewart and his ABC party have taken over both City Council, the Park Board, and school boards as well. There's a look at the final numbers. Ken Sim with 51% of the vote to Kennedy Stewart's 32%. He broke the 30,000 vote barrier, and Kennedy Stewart reached 18,732. Colleen Hardwood came in third with 9% of the vote.
And in Surrey, there was a little bit of drama just in the past few minutes there with Doug McCallum initially conceding and then saying he wasn't going to concede because there were only a few hundred votes separating him with Brenda Locke. But when that last polling station came in, that gap between the two widened enough, and Brenda Locke will be the next mayor of Surrey. So change in Metro Vancouver's two biggest cities.
Incumbents defeated now in Maple Ridge. Mike Morden is out. He lost to Dan Rumi, who is elected at 44% of the vote there.
And in West Vancouver, Marianne Booth losing her bid for another term. Mark Sager defeating Booth in their rematch.
More incumbents to tell you about that are no longer in the mayor's chair. Val Vandenbroek with some issues dealing with city council there in Langley City, replaced now by Nathan Pahal, who got 65% of the vote in Langley City.
Another incumbent falling tonight, Darrell Walker in White Rock, losing to Megan Knight, 38% for Megan Knight.
In Kelowna, Colin Bazaran, the at one time very popular mayor of Kelowna, lost to his old buddy, now political rival Tom Deas, with 62% of the vote.
And in Penticton, John Vasilaki losing, coming in third, in fact, to Julius Bloomfield. Julius Bloomfield, the new mayor-elect in Penticton. And Penticton has had a lot of issues with homelessness as well. We've seen it in a lot of BC cities. Of course, Keith Baldrey is part of our coverage, as he always is on an election night. Richard Zussman breaking down some results for us. Keith, let's start with you and talk about what I guess is the theme tonight, incumbents out.
Yeah, we talked about that in the news hour this past week, about how the mood out there seems to be a cranky electorate wanting to take out some frustration on sitting politicians. We're at a different point in the pandemic than we were in the 2020 provincial election. I think people are looking at governments differently now and political leaders differently. And as a result, a number of them paying the price. 6 mayors in Metro Vancouver, and I think another half dozen outside of Metro being defeated. And I think the latest results from Saanich, and Richard will have these numbers, I think we've also got a narrow win for a challenger there with the incumbent mayor losing there. So change is the theme, I think, in much of the province as a result of today's vote.
Change based on issues, right? We were talking about public safety being a big one heading into this, housing affordability. You know, did it turn out that way? It seems like voters who were motivated to vote, and let's be honest, turnout has not been great, but those who were motivated were certainly motivated to change what they felt was wrong in their cities.
It's also trust in governance, Chris, and that people want their mayors and city councillors to get down to work and to deliver. They don't want to see infighting. They don't want to see censures. They don't want to see court cases. They want governing. And I've looked up the 10 biggest cities in BC, and there's a lot of change happening in those communities. Vancouver, new mayor. Surrey, new mayor. Langley, both the district and the city, new mayor. Abbotsford, new mayor. And in Saanich, Keith mentioned it, Dean Murdoch has been elected. He's beat Fred Haynes by fewer than 200 votes. Change in Saanich as well. It is a big night of change and a message from the voters.
All right, we do need to take a break here on Decision 2022, but we've got reporters all across Metro Vancouver and watching some of the close races on Vancouver Island as well. So we'll take a break here and be right back with more for you.
Chris Gailus, Sophie Louis here with Decision 2022, extended coverage of the municipal election, and what a night it has been. We just listened to a pretty rousing acceptance speech from Ken Sim, the mayor-elect, new mayor-elect of Vancouver.
Ahmad Agahi has been with the ABC headquarters all evening, and there was a lot of excitement in that room, Ahmad.
That's right. Ken Sim took the stage. He spoke for about 15 minutes. Listen, his party, his campaign came into tonight confident. They knew they had something here tonight. They credit their success tonight with two things. The fact that they've worked very hard on the campaign trail, knocked on 70,000 doors, called 200,000 people. And the other factor is that people told them they want change in this city. And Ken Sim now is the man tasked with bringing that change. So it is a very happy mood here at ABC Vancouver's headquarters, but they have to get right down to work. And that's what Ken Sim promised the city in his victory speech just moments ago.
And we'll see, he's talking about day one, getting the ball rolling on the 100 new police officers and 100 nurses. So we'll see what happens with that.
He's got a big challenge ahead, no doubt. And they do in Surrey as well, where Brenda Locke is the mayor-elect, knocking Doug McCallum off the mayor's chair, and is very confident that she can unravel some of the work in Surrey to bring in its own police service. She says they won't go down that road, and they're going to stick with RCMP. Janet Brown has been there all night. What a night, and what a turnaround in Surrey tonight, Janet.
Chris, that is the understatement of the night. What a night indeed. Just over an hour ago, Brenda Locke stood at the podium and gave a speech accepting, the votes that she was elected the new mayor of Surrey. Then she left the building along with many of her supporters, and then things seemed to take a turn. With only one poll still reporting, there was a very small difference in votes between her and Mr. McCallum, roughly 500 or so. But now that final poll is in, and Brenda Locke has leaped ahead by about 1,000 votes. So now she has been declared the mayor-elect. But there were a few tense moments in the room here with her supporters. It went very quiet for quite some time, but then there was some celebration when the final numbers finally came in. So, as I say, Brenda Locke has left the building. She's gone home, and finally she can rest easy, I would assume now.
And so can you very shortly as well. It's been quite a night there, and a bit of a roller coaster, no doubt, but we appreciate the work you've done, Janet.
Lots of new mayors, new council members across this province. We'll break down more results for you in just a moment. Stay with us. Civic election 2022, lots of change right across this province in many municipalities. That includes, of course, the Okanagan.
That's right. Bad night for incumbents, no doubt about it. Kimberly Davidson is with Global Okanagan, joins us now with a look at what happened there, particularly in Penticton and Kelowna, where you're getting new mayors.
That's right. Thanks, Chris. Well, a couple of shakeups in our region and municipal politics, and the biggest shakeup in our largest city in the region. Kelowna has a new mayor in Tom Dias. Colin Basran ran as incumbent. In 2014, Basran was BC's youngest mayor to be voted in at that time at the age of 37. And he beat Dias handily in the 2018 election. But the tides have turned. Dias is an entrepreneur and former president of the Kelowna Chamber of Commerce. Another Okanagan city with a new leader is Penticton, where real estate agent and past president of the Downtown Penticton Association, Julius Bloomfield, overtook John Vasilaki, who served one term as mayor and 12 years as a city councillor. In Vernon, Victor Cumming has won a second term in the mayor's chair. The regional economist ran on a platform of making sure projects that have been started in the past 4 years are completed. And in West Kelowna, incumbent Mayor Gord Milsom will also serve another 4 years. The former city councillor was challenged by only one other candidate, and that was Andrew Kwasinski. So some Okanagan communities showing that they are happy to move forward under their current leadership, and other communities obviously looking for a change.
Yeah, the vote for change was big across the province. Kimberly, thank you very much. All the best to those new mayors and everyone who ran and won tonight in the Okanagan.
All right, let's bring in CKNW's Jazz Johal, who's been with us all evening as well, and giving us analysis with your political panel, Jazz.
Olak. The challenge, when I was looking at the numbers here, you've got Surrey, obviously, a mayor that is elected now. You have a mayor elected in Vancouver as well that is centre-right. Mary, let me go to you. I'm sure Kevin Falcon is watching tonight. I'm sure he's not doing cartwheels, but you got to ask yourself, he's got to be smiling today when the mayors of Surrey and Vancouver would be individuals that would generally be supportive of the BC Liberals.
Well, and more to the point, look at the heavy hitters that the NDP brought out to try and save Kennedy Stewart's incumbency, and it just seemed to have little to no effect. I mean, even Jenny Kwan on screen at the campaign celebration or campaign gathering, shall we say, Libby Davies. I mean, they brought out all the heavy hitters, and yet couldn't seem to crack that. So that's got to bode ill for them. They've got to be concerned.
Andrea, let me bring you in. You've got lots of experience at Vancouver Council, Metro Vancouver Board. You have Ken Sim, who's got an overwhelming majority, but no government experience, no experience as a city councillor as well. You've got a significant budget, significant requirements, and many, many promises made as well. What should he be doing the first month, the first couple of months, moving forward in regards to moving their agenda? I mean, you have somebody who's done well in the private sector, but that doesn't necessarily mean success in the public sector.
Yeah, no, it does not. So, I mean, I thought his speech was good. I think he ticked a lot of the right boxes in terms of what he should be doing, which is reaching out to people who do have that experience and people who might not share his political beliefs, but have the experience to get things done. I think regionally, I mean, a lot of phone calls need to be made. There's a meeting on November 17th, the inaugural meeting of the Mayor's Council. There'll be an inaugural meeting of Metro Vancouver and a lot of jockeying for leadership there and who's going to control votes and power. And I mean, I hear Mary's points about the Liberals in terms of Vancouver and Surrey, but man, it was not a good night for BC Liberal allied candidates outside of those two cities. We saw, I mean, Dan Rumi winning in Maple Ridge. That was a massive upset. A sitting incumbent mayor was swept out in favor of Dan, who's an NDP allied person, because he is a strong voice on housing. We saw Julius Bloomfield in Penticton. Again, Vasilaki gone, very anti-housing. And Julius is in now. Eric Woodward wiping out Rich Coleman in Township of Langley. Like, I did not see that coming. I can't say I'm an expert at Langley politics, and I understand there was a split there, Armand Hereford and Squamish. I mean, I could go on. There was a lot of very progressive, pro-housing, pro-climate action mayors elected tonight.
Hill Salem, we've got about 30 seconds left. Your thoughts, overall thoughts on what you saw today? I know there's going to be lots of number crunching tomorrow and next week, but your overall thoughts on what's transpired?
Yeah, there's definitely been some sort of more progressive voices elected in the suburbs. Even looking at some of the results, like Linda Buchanan in the city of North Van, the close race in the district of North Van. I think what was going to be interesting to watch is who rises within the Mayor's Council and Metro Board. Who are going to be the prominent voices? Who's going to coalesce the coalitions to be able to drive a regional agenda, especially when it comes to big ticket items around transit and transportation and other projects that are going to need federal and provincial support.
Well, there's going to be lots to dissect in the weeks ahead. Sophie, Chris, Keith, back to you.
And our thanks, of course, to you, Jazz, and to Hill Salem and Andrea Reimer and Mary Polak for joining us tonight and for joining Jazz's show all these weeks. Looking ahead to the election.
It's been fun to have them on board, and as they mentioned, lots of opportunity for new leadership on the Mayor's Council and across the board to figure out how to move this giant region forward into the future. And we'll continue to discuss that tonight. We'll take another break and be back to wrap things up right after that on Decision 2022. Thanks for joining us on Decision 2022. Did I say that too loud? Did I bark it out a little bit too much? We're in the home stretch here as polls closed about 3.5 hours ago. And wow, what a night it's been for incumbents who, many of them, got blown out.
Yeah, let's bring in Richard Zussman, who has been tracking that. And some surprises, some we sort of had seen that they would be close races, Richard, but break it down for us.
Yeah, so let's start in the big one here. And this is an incumbent going down, and Vancouver is now Sim City. And I expected Gailus was going to use that line a long time ago, so I'm happy I've got to use it in the last few minutes here. So Ken Sim is the new mayor of Vancouver, defeating Kennedy Stewart by nearly 12,000 votes, a decisive victory there. And then you go to the second largest city in the province, and Brenda Locke has defeated incumbent Doug McCallum. 6 municipalities in Metro Vancouver where incumbents have lost. A big surprise. Megan Knight defeating Darrell Walker in White Rock. And then you go up here to Langley City. Nathan Pahal has defeated Val Vandenbroek. Clearly the message from voters across Metro Vancouver and across the province has been one of change. We go here to Maple Ridge. Dan Roomy, the former MP, has defeated Mike Morden by nearly 2,000 votes. And the last one here in Metro Vancouver, Mark Sager defeating Mary Ann Booth in West Vancouver. So a lot of change. Those are the incumbents who've lost. We also have new mayors in New West, Port Moody, Pitt Meadows, Langley Township. We saw an incumbent lose in Saanich. We saw an incumbent lose in Kelowna. We have a new mayor in Victoria. A lot of fresh faces. I also want to talk about the school board race in Chilliwack. People will say, why do you want to talk about the school board race in Chilliwack? Well, Barry Neufeld has earned a reputation over the years as being homophobic, and he has been defeated. But one of the new trustees in Chilliwack is Terry Westerby, the first trans man in Canadian history to be elected to office. A very clear signal from the people of Chilliwack that they are not going to put up with these homophobic views they see on the school board. And clearly this is a message that should resonate with so many in this province as well.
And when we have time to really drill down into some of these school board votes, Richard and Keith, it'd be interesting to see if that Parents' Voice BC group, the organization, as they call themselves, managed to elect any members to school boards in the I think it was 8 school districts where they were running. Keith, that was something we were going to be looking at tonight, or we were looking at as potential story tonight.
Yeah, we were a little busy doing some other things, including taking a lot of look at Vancouver and Surrey, and all, as Richard outlined, all the changes of mayors. We're going to get to that, though. They ran 28 candidates, about 4 candidates in a half dozen districts, and a little less than 2 more. And we'll see how well they did. The strategy there for this sort of Christian right was to get a toehold at a low level of politics and work their way up, similar to what elements of the Republican Party have been doing in the United States. Go into the state legislatures, then work your way up into the Congress and the Senate. And this is a lot of these linked to the People's Party of Canada, very much anti-government, anti-vax, very strong Christian candidates as well. So that's a story for another day. But as you say, tonight was all about change. And I agree with Richard in terms of Barry Neufeld and Chilliwack. The fact that the NDP has elected MLAs out in Chilliwack, Langley, and Abbotsford for the first time, electing their candidate or former NDP in Langley City tonight as mayor, and seeing what transpired in Chilliwack at the school board shows the demographics are changing and the public mood is changing. And tonight was all about people viewing politicians and governments different ways as we come out of the pandemic and sort of get things back to normal. And politicians paid a heavy price for that, depending on where they lived.
Yeah, it almost seems like it flipped, where you normally think these packed urban centers are sort of a younger, more progressive vote. It almost seems like that's what's happening out in the suburbs right now, and we've seen this sort of swing back to the center right in the urban centers in Vancouver, especially, which has seen major problems with crime and disorder that Ken Sim was very effective at addressing in his campaign.
And Richard, you've got some more results or another race that we're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I want to talk about voter turnout. So I've put Victoria up here. Marianne Alto has been elected the mayor there, and a much higher turnout than I think a lot of people expected. So we're just crunching these numbers early. Turnout in Victoria, 38%. In Port Moody, it was 36%. In Surrey, 34.5%. Low, sure, but not as low as what some people had anticipated. And these sort of turnout numbers show that people had something they wanted to go vote for and go out and have their vote heard. And we've been spending a lot of time talking about mayors. We're also seeing a lot of change on council. In Victoria, there are no councillors who return. The only one that was running for re-election, Ben Isaac, has been defeated, and it's going to be a completely new slate along with Marianne Alto, who is a current councillor, and Chris Coleman, who is a former councillor. So that sort of institutional knowledge is gone in places like Victoria, but there are going to be a lot of fresh faces here who have the voters on their side in terms of coming in with these new ideas.
They'll be leaning on Marianne Alto for some leadership there with the experience that she's had on council, no doubt.
And Keith, just as we wrap up here, we heard Kelsey-Salem talking about, who will be that voice to bring these different municipalities and different councils together. Any thoughts on that as we prepare to say goodnight?
Well, in Metro, I think you're going to see mayors like Brad West step to the fore to replace people like Jonathan Cote. Malcolm Brody's another veteran name there. And in the capital region, it's going to be interesting. We've got new mayor in Saanich, new mayor in Victoria. A lot of people trying to find their new way.
A lot of change, no doubt about it. And we'll be here to cover it all for you as well. I want to thank Richard Zussman, Keith Baldrey. Thanks so much for what you guys put into this evening.
And our team's out in the field and our crews here behind the scenes. And thank you if you got out and voted today. And thanks to all the candidates who put their names forward in this municipal election.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for watching.